Welcome, welcome. This is Sybert signing in to Kane's Wrath, and of course, we are here with the July Ladder season. Actually, it's not a season. I don't know why it's called that. With the July Ladder Wars Finals, little double elimination tournament. I don't know, it's 6 or 8 people, something like that. It is 8, but we got 8 people. 4 of them are on the top half of the bracket. 4 of them are on the bottom half of the bracket. And of course, the most important part, the special guest, the co-commentator, the vice host. Welcome, Spartacus. Welcome back to Kane's Wrath. It's been so long. It's been about a year since our last dual cast. You've been super busy. I've been a little bit busy. How are you feeling? How excited are you for this first match?
Yeah, so I just was looking at the time. I think it's been about almost a year and a half actually. And so I'm feeling good. It's a little early here. I forget what the life was like back in the day, having to do the early morning stuff, but feeling good. Feeling good. It's exciting to see some folks that have been around for many years back again to continue playing. So it's going to be fun.
Those darn European time zones, which for us Americans feel a little bit early, but I actually don't know where Dimitri is. I think Masterleaf he's somewhere in Europe. I don't know exactly where, but Dimitri versus Masterleaf is looking like it is going to be our first match of the day. Now, the bracket is a little bit in flux. We did have some folks no-showing or some other folks showing. Because it is Ladder Wars, it's sort of a ranked system where, like, anyone from the first, 10 or 20 ranks can sign up. But, obviously, not all of them did. So, we do have 8 of those players here. That is what the bracket currently looks like. And yeah, our first match of Dimitri versus Masterleaf. It might be a bit of a topsy-turvy, one-sided match, but honestly, Dimitri has been playing really well in 2023, and I'm hoping that he can show, he was playing well last year also, but I'm hoping he can show some really good games, and I'm super excited to see what he brings versus Masterleaf. Now, if Futurama and Bike Rush both show up, then that means on the south side of the upper bracket, we will have a pretty sick matchup to go to after that, because it'll be the winner of that versus the winner of this match. But yeah, it's a potentially really stacked tournament. On the bottom side, Buka versus Eclipse, Cyberstorm versus Gaseous, and that is potentially a great loser's bracket or lower bracket for one of these players to continue through and then come back for the grand finals.
Yeah, it's really cool to see the mix of both the older players that we remember from the old days, Masterleaf, Dimitri, Bike Rush, Eclipse especially, Cyberstorm. It's so crazy to see these guys so many years later. I was just looking, it's been about, at least from my end, it's been like 10 years. So it's crazy to see these guys still playing and still really putting up the numbers.
And we have our delay of game. Our first map, it looks like it's going to be Pipeline Problems, which is not what I would have picked. But Dimitri has asked for a quick second before we actually begin the game. So we are moments away, hopefully, moments away on Pipeline Problems, which, again, not what I would have thought for the map number 1. By the way, for those of you who care, this is R20. So this is 1.02 plus R20E. Tons of new maps. Sparty and I were looking through the list last night. Even just the difference from R19 to R20, every time there is new maps. This game has been out for 144 years. EA stopped supporting it 3 seconds after the game came out. EA released 0 maps in the post-game release window, and yet the community has released approximately 60,000 maps here into the multiplayer pool. And it's great to see all of the maps, but none of that matters because, of course, we are back with Pipeline Problems, a classic from Tib Wars, and a weird one to start out game number 1 on.
I'm digging the classic, so I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, because actually I think the last thing we casted was Tib Wars, so this will maybe feel a little bit more familiar to you. And, hopefully we don't have any weird surprises, but we are going to have some surprises because here we are in game number 1. Yes, indeed, it is time for pipeline problems. And oh, that actually, that disappears. All right. Well, spawning in the north as a GDI faction, this is Dimitri. This is game 1 of a best of 5. And in the south, playing as blue and playing as a Nod faction, this is Masterleaf.
So Masterleaf and Dimitri here on Pipeline Problems. Old school, old school. I'm digging it.
And it is a GDI versus Nod. I didn't quite realize that when I hide the overlay for the viewers, it also hides it for me. And I didn't think about that before I did the intros. So I had a crutch that I was going to lean on, and then I realized I made my crutch disappear. But this is not a crane opener for Dimitri. Oh, this is kind of weird. So he actually goes Refinery into War Factory. Meanwhile, Masterleaf, we have, and I'm reversing these, Masterleaf goes Refinery into War Factory, and Dimitri goes for the traditional crane opening, double Refinery. I have to get my head around the fact that Dimi is pink and not Masterleaf being pink.
Right. Yeah. No. It's definitely interesting. Pipeline Problems always a weird map by comparison to all others in Kane's Wrath, even from the old days. Is that there was just some really unique stuff to it. But it looks like it's going to be a Flame Reckoner opener here from, I believe this is Masterleaf down in the south. And so we'll have to see if Dimi sees this coming. Otherwise, he's going to be in for some pain up on that blue field.
He does indeed see it coming. That Scouting Rifleman could not have been better timed. He just barely caught an edge of that, but he did go triple ref. So that was a hugely expensive opening for Dimitri. He is going to pay the price for that. Reckoner a few moments away, and in a straight GDI versus Nod, I don't know if he even has the cash for a War Factory. He doesn't currently, and his build queue is all jammed up. So bye-bye to 2 refineries. Masterleaf with a fantastic opening. I cannot believe this is as effective as it is.
Yeah, so it's probably not going to be the end of the game here for Dimitri. He should be able to recover from this because he's really not going to lose any harvesters. What he needs to make sure that he's doing is dealing with this Reckoner. The Reckoner being over there is just going to cause problems with trying to get any of that blue tib later on. But we'll have to see how he chooses to pivot here. It looks like he's gone with a more standard build back at home on his green field. He's got his War Factory up, so he's definitely not dead, but not looking good.
All right, so we have 3 harvesters still going off from the blue Tiberium for Dimi, and that's, that's a pretty decent income still from blue Tiberium. It, of course, will take much longer to actually drive over to those refineries, but he's still got half a field that he can slowly harvest, so he does, as you say, it's not over. He does have a chance to make this right. Masterleaf keeping his income high, and even with the double refinery opening, Dimitri is about to be eclipsed by Masterleaf in terms of total resources gathered. Masterleaf prepping back at home with a barracks, bunch of rocket squads coming out on his green field, and this might just kind of turn into a net zero situation where one player opened a double refinery on the blue and the other player opened a single refinery, and yet at the end of it all, they're basically on the same foot.
Yeah, so I think what we're probably not seeing, and I'll be curious to see the resource graphs later, is that blue Tiberium is going to provide a huge amount of income for Masterleaf. So there was a short-term kind of stalemate there as that fight kind of evened things out, like you said. But now we're going to start to see Masterleaf try to take advantage of the fact that he's got that eco advantage. So it's going to be interesting to see how Dimitri tries to put pressure on Masterleaf to try to keep him from taking advantage of that advantage. So I'm curious to see what the pivot is.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be like normal GDI stuff. By the way, tib spike advantage goes to Dimitri. Masterleaf did not grab his tib spike. With that opening that he created, he has completely forgotten his tib spike, and at this point, he definitely had an opportunity to sneak something out to grab the tib spike, but he has not. However, Masterleaf doing Masterleaf things, double MCV, very likely going obelisks as well, and there's a sneaky flame tank potentially heading up the left side of the map.
Yeah, I'm liking it. Masterleaf's putting pressure around the map. He's keeping Dimitri on his toes, so if he's not paying attention in a particular area, he's going to take some losses for sure. But like you said, it's going to be typical GDI stuff here. It's going to be Predator tanks, APCs. We're going to have to see that AP ammo upgrade quickly here as there's a huge amount of infantry spam that's coming his way.
All right, Dimitri is sitting on that third base. He's got that command post upgrading that AP ammo, we can only assume. Once again, Masterleaf still forgetting his, and actually he's sold off his barracks, but he's completely forgotten that tip spike. There's no engineer headed that way. Flame Tank does get caught by a couple of watchtowers back at Dimitri's home. It is going to be going pretty deep into enemy territory, and there's no real opposition for it. So a couple of power plants, a couple of refineries are all on the menu for this Flame Tank, and the fight at the front line means that that Flame Tank is going to be unopposed back at home. EMPs land, War Factory falls, and Dimitri holds on to the third, but his front line is crumbling, and there may be nothing that he can really do about this Flame Tank.
Yeah, man. Masterleaf just looking strong as always, and that Flame Tank, honestly, actually kind of being thrown away right now. It probably could have killed another refinery, but I'm sure it was just a missed micro from Masterleaf, but you can't really blame him for it. He's done a lot of damage here. Dimitri's definitely on the back foot, and now it's going to be a matter of Masterleaf continuing to press his advantage, move that MCB up, continue to spam out the obelisk, get that infantry line up. He's got avatars behind it now. This is not looking good. Dimitri really has to find a decisive counterstrike here in order to turn things around.
Game number one, looking for Masterleaf's point, and I guess that's just going to be it. Dimitri opening up with that double blue refinery, and in the end, it is not going to serve him. All throughout this game, Dimitri actually stayed ahead in total resources gathered, and unless Masterleaf totally falters this, Dimitri's got no economy back at home. So Masterleaf is the one expanding into his third base. Dimitri has nothing to fall back on. So if he pushes this army back, he's still got just this broken expansion that he's going to be working off of. And Masterleaf, he's the one with the safe expansion. Juggernauts are here, 3 of them. A good number of Juggernauts to try and hold off this army, and Masterleaf's infantry have evaporated.
Yeah, Masterleaf has, again, done a very nice job of continuing to build his infrastructure behind this attack, and he's also got his air tower up for dealing with the inevitable Juggernauts, which is a phenomenal transition here into Vertigo bombers. He's going to be able to deal with these Juggernauts with absolutely no air cover, so it's going to be pretty lights out for these Juggernauts once those Vertigos are up.
And the obelisks are the icing on the cake there. Avatar's not able to get any shots off. Juggernauts actually, pretty much all of the Juggernauts pulled back out of range. I cannot believe only one Juggernaut died there to a double obelisk drop and a Vertigo bomber. So Dimitri actually salvaged that situation, which looked terrible. Oh, there's the one click. Double refinery gets sold off. Dimitri barely moments ahead of the catalyst missile as he's able to get as much value as possible from that engagement. But once again, Dimitri's economy must be close to 0.
Yeah, Dimitri's struggling a little bit here, but he's been doing actually a really fantastic job of keeping this game somewhat in his control, so that it's not just going decisively in Masterleaf's favor. And we're seeing Pitbull's coming over.
Snipes the MCV, and the Pitbull's going for the kill on the Vertigos as they try and refuel Dimitri, never giving up, never losing hope, and he's actually pushing the front line back. Killing that MCV was actually such a critical move as he completely removes the build radius from the front line where his Juggernauts are. That was perfect.
That was huge. He really needed that MCV to go down because he just needed that pressure to go away. And
yeah.
With that MCV gone, the pressure is gone as with it, you know, and then also to just get the icing on the cake by taking out the Vertigos and taking out the air tower. It's just it's looking good now. I mean, fantastic pivots from these guys.
And like Dimitri actually has just 2 or 3 harvesters completely safely guarded now. He's put the reverse Uno card onto Masterleaf, and he is now the one stepping forward. Masterleaf is the one who's going to have this broken economy at his third, and Dimitri doesn't have a lot of strength left, but Masterleaf apparently has even less.
Yeah, I'm liking the transition from Masterleaf. Spectre gun, or rather the Spectre artillery coming out to kind of try to deal with these Juggernauts. Granted, they're going to have a little bit of a difficult time. And Dimitri, I'm curious to see if he's going to go for something fast-moving like Pitbull pit bulls, or perhaps maybe even just go heavy tanks and just start pumping out predator tanks on the front lines, because that MCV is very far forward.
Oh my gosh, Masterleaf not able to close it out there at the third, and these pit bulls just will not leave the... What?
Commando coming in near the MCV, almost got the War Factory, but it looked, I think it was either sold off. No, I think he did get the War Factory. So Commando on the field here for Masterleaf.
At the same time, the pit bulls going deep into enemy territory, performing their own commando actions, hunting the vertigos there at the main base of Masterleaf, and these juggernauts never died. The 4 or 5 juggernauts that started the game, a couple of them got eliminated, and not at a fast enough rate that Dimitri couldn't replace them. And even now, Dimitri still has, well, 3 active on the front line. Masterleaf has been struggling to deal with these juggernauts this entire game, and that commando is a nice touch. Masterleaf says, great map. He GG's at
wow.
it. Dimitri takes game number 1. Are you kidding me? Dimitri takes pipeline problems away from Masterleaf.
What a great start to this event, man. This is just two guys that have been playing this game for so long that just know exactly how to counterpunch at the right times, and just they keep their cool and they just play through it. And Masterleaf, I mean, he tossed it in at the end, but honestly, he probably could have pivoted again. It's just phenomenal transitions from each of these guys every single time. Like, it's just stuff that absolutely shut down the push from the other player, despite being behind or being caught off guard by it initially.
Insane start here from Dimitri. I can't believe he managed to pull that off. And that'll just be the end of game 1 and the start of the series. 1 game down, and somehow Masterleaf, who we thought was going to be able to close that out around the 3rd base, just wasn't able to clinch it. And Eclipse briefly joining the lobby for just a moment. But, I mean, what a weird turn. I thought for sure Masterleaf, who's normally so good at executing, was going to be able to close that out. But it's like the 2 things that he never completely dealt with were those juggernauts, and he never actually killed the economy of Dimitri. The economy almost was broken for so long of that game, but Dimitri always had something turning.
Yeah, it's just the not give up mentality. That's going to be the thing that really saves you against players like Masterleaf and even Dimitri, and especially against players like Bike Rush. You just can't toss it in, because you're going to take a bad engagement at some point. You just have to make sure that you're paying attention to what that engagement was, and then figure out how you can strike back.
Masterleaf, the map pick will go to him. By the way, big thanks to everyone tuning in. This broadcast is something that we put together very much last minute. I wasn't originally going to be available to cast this, and I reached out to you, Sparty, almost on a whim, because you are so difficult to schedule because you're so busy with real life, which is understandable, that I thought this short notice, there's no way you were going to be able to make this work. But you're here, I'm here, everyone's happy, and I think we're excited to go into game number 2. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And, of course, Sparty, thank you for being here. It's great to have you.
Yeah, you're being far too kind to me. I am incredibly difficult to get a text back from, and it's not because I'm super cool or super busy. It's just because I'm terrible about texting. So Sybert got the response because he is a persistent man, and I love the guy, so you can't say no.
That was almost the perfect amount of time for me to finish eating. But thank you. And always glad to have another match to go to. Now, this is the best of 5, so we are starting to run a little bit low on points to give out, but we'll see exactly where this one goes here in game number 2. We're on Tournament Odyssey. We are hiding the overlay, and it is going to be Marked of Kane's versus Steel Talons in a weird twist. Here we got spawning as the Cyan Marked of Kane. This is Masterleaf. Stealing that pink color out from under him, playing Steel Talons. This is Dimitri.
Steel Talons and Marked of Kane, and it's Tournament Odyssey, right? I'm trying to remember the map name here.
Tournament Odyssey. You are correct.
Yeah, so this is an interesting map. It keeps players around the perimeter with their bases, so you don't really see the base pushy stuff that we just saw in the last game. So it's really going to be a lot of fast movers on this map, and really just going to be what that kind of mid to late game transition looks like for each player.
This is a map where multi-MCV is pretty common around the third bases. Like we see in a lot of maps, once you get that 2-base economy fully powered up, a lot of players do like to go for that multi-MCV play. But this is also one of those maps. Is he doing it again? Is Masterleaf going for another Reckoner Flame Rush? No, he's not. He's Marked of Kane. I was completely misremembering. He's Marked of Kane. No flame weapons.
So maybe looking to snag away a Tiberium Spike?
Okay, but he is going... Yeah?
Or 2?
Or... No, the Tip Troopers
Just
don't
one.
go in. Okay, I don't know what Masterleaf has planned, but he's sort of clearing the middle of the map with his Awakened squad, and maybe he's going to be able to make something happen. Is he going to EMP the MCV? I don't know, but Dimitri has some pain coming his way. Masterleaf gets the scout barely with his Awakened squad, and Masterleaf is also dodging the rifle scouts of Dimitri as much as he possibly can.
Oh man, if this Reckoner does what I think he's going to try to do, he's going to try to EMP the MCV as it comes to the expansion, and then as it's EMP'd, he's not going to be able to pack it up and prevent the capture from the Saboteur. So this could be deadly.
Okay, Reckoner is here. It pauses for a moment. MCV has not unpacked. MCV doesn't unpack! And this is just a delay because, of course, Dimitri doesn't know what's in there, but he can assume that it's not a couple of rockets from the fact that he's not taking damage. And now it's just the most awkward dance as they step on each other's toes. But there are a couple of MRTs here from the Steel Talons player. The MCV is safe. Masterleaf with these tricky openers, but it's not working out.
It was definitely a weird one, and it was either going to really work or it really wasn't, and it turns out that it really didn't work. But still interesting to pivot, and now we've got an operations center back up from Masterleaf. No expansion from him yet, so I'm curious what this operations center is going to entail. Maybe he's going straight to Tier 3?
You have to give it to Masterleaf, who's down 0-1 in a best-of-5. I mean, it is a double elimination, and goes for a sneaky, different kind of a build here in game number 2. I love that kind of stuff. I love seeing a little bit of gumption and a little bit of variety from a player who doesn't just play, 10 Harvesters into Tier 3.
Oh, wow. Is this going to be enlightened with fast legs?
There it is. Right as you said fast legs, the upgrade finishes. And now he's got those super speedy Tib infused Marked of Kane infantry. Engineer is still packed along with this, which means it is going to be a speedy engineer. And there are, of course, going to be lots of other units to try to body block for this engineer. I love grabbing the defensive tower. Dimitri has managed to do that. Engineer splits off to the left side, and it's going to be a little bit of an assault at the front door. Dimitri has some threats to deal with. Inside that Reckoner is just a couple of Awakened squads, or Enlightened squads, rather.
Yeah, so Dimitri with Steel Talons actually not going to be in a terrible position to try to deal with this infantry, because once he gets these APM Wolverines rolling, they're really going to mow down that infantry pretty quick, but I'm curious if that's what Masterleaf is interested in forcing out, because he has a transition in mind to go into something else that's then going to be able to absolutely crush that APM heavy force.
But Dimitri has a guarding watchtower back at his MCV. A lot of this is just a distraction tactic, as Dimitri is supposed to be responding far off to the side while Masterleaf sneaks in with an engineer. That's a massive EMP in almost any other game, but here he doesn't have the firepower to actually kill off these units, so he gets an MRT, but there the engineer gets sniped, and Masterleaf's second engineer does another massive EMP. Dimitri is getting demolished by EMPs alone.
And the Tib Troopers just slowing everything down. The speed advantage that Marked of Kane has right now is just unbelievable. Just melting these Wolverines. Unbelievable. The Tib Troopers, crazy damage.
That was every single Wolverine that was on the map in that moment. AP Ammo still hasn't finished for Dimitri, and Masterleaf, after a somewhat disastrous start, has actually pulled something out of this game. He's not totally in control of this Steel Talons player, but he's in a much better situation than he was a minute ago.
Yeah, and now he's able to use these Tib Troopers and Enlightened to be able to run around the map, take out anything that's been kind of left undefended. So Tib Spikes and stuff going to be on the table. It looks like a Reckoner that's empty, getting kind of cleaned up in the middle of the map as the MCV for Dimitri moves forward. It looks like he's going to try to put pressure on the expansion here from Masterleaf, realizing that he's put a lot of money into this early push, and so he wants to put him back into the defensive position rather than having to chase this stuff around the map.
Yeah, in terms of total resources gathered, Dimitri is 12,000. By the way, Dimitri is Thanatos. If you see that name on the overlay, I forgot to change it. Dimitri is 12,000 credits ahead in total resources gathered. But how much is that actually going to matter? It will matter a little bit now that AP Ammo is done and the Wolverines have been rebuilt. Double Watchtower on the front line. Titans are going to be running for their lives back up the hill as the front line gets EMP'd. Once again, the EMPs from Masterleaf are massive, locking down so much of the DPS and damage output of Dimitri's army. He can't shoot anything when it's locked down like that. Fresh War Factory onto the front line, but fresher EMPs locking everything down slowly but surely. Dimitri's army is crushing over Masterleaf, and so close there as Masterleaf almost makes that a fair fight.
Yeah, and it just shows the power of the traditional builds. That's why they're as strong as they are. Is that they offer the most opportunity to deal with the most wide variety of situations. And Masterleaf definitely going to be throwing the kitchen sink in at this. That's the wildest build that I've seen on this map in a minute. Marked of Kane versus Steel Talons, two of arguably the tougher factions to be successful with, and both of them actually put on quite a nice show.
I will say I'm a little bit disappointed that we did not get a bit more of Masterleaf action in that game. I was hoping he was going to be able to make some kind of comeback happen, but unfortunately, that'll be the end of it. Dimitri takes a 2-0 lead in a best-of-5, putting him on match point as we head into game number 3. And that is not at all how I thought this tournament was going to be going. I did not think that Dimitri was going to be up 2-0 versus Masterleaf, but yet, here we find ourselves.
Yeah, so I'm going to be interested to see. We've obviously seen Masterleaf doing some really unique stuff. So this is where the mind games start to come into play, is that my instinct would be that Masterleaf is going to try to do something more conventional this time around. But then again, he may be thinking that Dimitri is going to assume that and then just immediately do something unusual again. And then similarly, Dimitri has some mind games that he can play in terms of, like, he's been playing pretty standard, whereas he could certainly turn that around and realize that Masterleaf's going to play standard and he could do something a little bit odd. But honestly, I think for Dimitri's sake, it's probably just going to be to his benefit to just continue to play the way that he's been playing. It's been successful so far. He's up 2-0. Why fix what isn't broken?
I mean, I kind of just expect Dimitri to keep playing standard. He is a pretty straightforward macro player most of the time. At least those are the games from him that I've seen in the last year or so. Just that really straightforward, normal kind of play. And Masterleaf, he is the tricky one, but I would also love to see Masterleaf just absolutely turn it into normal mode and crush these next 3 games and find himself at the advantage in that way. But I guess we will both have to wait to find out to see exactly how this game goes here on Tournament Los Angeles. Welcome to the Burger Kong. Welcome to this chicken restaurant as well. And spawning in as the Pank, this is Dimitri. Up 2-0. He does not have a scoreboard. No one has scoreboards. We just have to keep it all in our minds. But spawning as the green, playing black hand, this is Masterleaf. Masterleaf switching it up every single time. But Dimitri staying with that Steel Talons.
Yeah, and it looks like Dimitri's headed for the mutant hovel with an engineer, so I'm very curious if that's like standard meta on this map.
There's also an EMP control center in the corner that he might be going for.
Okay. I got a feeling it's going to be mutants.
Masterleaf goes Secret Shrine! He goes like 5 rockets and some cabals, and then his secret shrine. So Black Disciples are going to be swiftly on the menu. And yeah, he is heading for that EMP in the corner.
Oh, wow.
Now, fortunately for Dimitri, there is no quick war factory. There is no quick buggy to try and scoot out into the top left-hand corner with a buggy and deny that. Meanwhile, we do see the rifleman of Dimitri doing the exact anti-scout to the thing that he is doing. His engineer is in the top left, and Dimitri's rifle squad is in the bottom right, looking for an engineer headed towards that EMP control center, which he will not find, but he will find many Black Disciples headed for his main.
Yeah, so again, Dimitri's going to be on the back foot early on because he's been playing more standard, and Masterleaf is clearly committed pretty hard to investing in this early rush. And the question is, Masterleaf's been very good at not losing these units in these early rushes and then putting them to use later. Like we saw him earlier with that Reckoner with the Engineer and Tip Trooper squad in it, or I think it was just an Awakened squad actually. Didn't actually lose that, even though it wasn't able to be used for what he was hoping for. So, going to be curious to see how he chooses to push into this base.
Back home, Masterleaf went double refinery and then sold off one of the refineries and then built a war factory afterwards. So this is a very unorthodox build, and at the current moment, Dimitri just powers down one of his refineries and sort of says, I'm going to play on this side of the field, and you can just play on that side of the field. MRT takes a lot of damage, but ultimately survives. The Watchtower goes down instead, but triple Watchtower on the front line, and the Harvesters are starting to take damage as Masterleaf gains a bit of courage, but he still is not going to get a kill.
Yeah, the MRTs are a nice touch here because even though there's no damage output from them, they are tanking some damage from this infantry, just making sure that his watchtowers and his harvesters aren't taking that damage, and also providing needed repairs in the field to these harvesters. As you can see, that harvester was out of range of the war factory there for repairs, so it's very nice. And we also have a Titan out on the field as well.
Masterleaf, not one to be beaten in the game, goes for an operations center, goes for a flame tank as the follow-up. And he's skirted that flame tank off to the right side. He's hoping that his infantry army continues to distract Dimitri, but Dimitri, I think, spotted it. He's got a Titan headed for the back line. And, well, Masterleaf always trying to sneak something around the edges, but it's just not going to work.
Yep, so the Titan was an odd choice given that there was so much infantry, but that was because Dimitri's spidey senses or good scouting was tingling, and he did see that flame tank coming. And again, these guys have enough history that Dimitri knows that that what you're seeing is not necessarily what's coming.
He's going to get the War Factory. Masterleaf just killed Dimitri's War Factory. If he could get some of these Harvesters, that would really cement the damage that he's done. But this secondary infantry squad coming up from the south has found an opening, found an angle that is open to damage. And this flame tank mixed in means that this refinery is almost certainly going to go down. And now Dimitri is in a very awkward spot indeed. He's going to be able to sweep up the infantry, but that tank is largely unopposed.
Yep, and Dimitri overcommitted his Titan to chasing away that that flame tank on the far right, which did escape as well. So, yeah, this is big damage.
The refinery! Oh, he sells it off! He sells it off for 0 at the same time. The body block with the War Factory and Thanatos. Dimitri, he has a tip spike, but he just canceled some stuff. He's got $2,000 now. So I think he's going to be able to finish this refinery, but he's going to be zeroed on his bank account for the next minute. Fortunately, he has so many Harvesters ready to unload, and Masterleaf cursing himself for fixing the Harvester glitches. Masterleaf recently in R20 weeded out and fixed all of those harvester refining glitches. So Dimitri is going to have an extremely smooth time once this refinery gets placed, which now it is up, of seeing these harvesters refine immediately. The only thing that hasn't happened is this harvester has not gone to work. Dimitri has an empty harvester just waiting.
I'm sure he can have some harvesters probably take a little bit of a chill pill, because he's got a few too many on that field right now anyways. But that flame tank from Masterleaf back on the move came all the way back to base for repairs after surviving that Titan, and then got the full repairs back up to full health and is on the move again, and only one Titan out right now to try to defend against it.
I do love Masterleaf going for the blue Tiberium in the middle of the map as well. Like, behind all of this, his main base is drying up. He needs to get an expansion up and running. But in the interim, he's been going for that blue Tiberium. He's been stealing it all to himself and defending it with these attacks time and time again. Double refinery back up and running on the main. And Dimitri and Masterleaf, finally, this flame tank might find its purchase, might find its value. It's running past the MCV. No, it finally turns. And a completely undefended MCV. The Titan is so far away, and the MCV is going to have to pack up and run for the hills. That'll buy enough time, but that means the Titan is not back home defending these Wolverines, which don't yet have AP ammo. That was canceled long ago. The rockets getting whittled down one by one. Those watchtowers doing massive damage, doing massive help, and once again, this flame tank on the edge of death, 1v1ing this Titan, but finally, it will go down. The MCV survives. Dimitri barely keeping hope alive.
Yep, and Masterleaf in the meantime expanding down into the bottom left, so his economy is going to be up and rolling here. So we're going to see a huge move from Masterleaf here in the very near future. Not sure if that's going to be infantry or potentially, yeah, it'll probably be infantry. I can't imagine Bike Buggy being too effective against Steel Talons. So I imagine we'll see an absolute swarm of rocket squads coming through here in the near future.
The mass exodus from the main base as 6 empty refineries roll up to the natural expansion at the same time that 5 bikes from Masterleaf roll up to Dimitri's natural expansion. The barracks gets sold off. That EMP has not been used, and these are the first units that Dimitri actually could potentially use an EMP on. Its countdown must be at 0 at this point, so if they ever stop, these bikes might find themselves zapped, but they are going to just skate on out of the base. Now, on the left side of the map, there was an MRT with a rifle, which sniped a random engineer from Masterleaf. I have no idea why Dimitri, in the face of all of that pressure, snuck an MRT with a rifleman off to the side, out to the west, and had an MRT over there, but he did! He did, and he sniped an engineer just out of nowhere. So, ultimately, brilliant move by Dimitri. Genius.
I'm sure he wasn't looking for the engineer. I'm sure he was very happy to find it. I think he was mostly just getting very cautious about what was happening on the left side of the map. He hasn't seen anything come from that direction in a minute, so good idea to send that MRT as a scout. Obviously not doing a whole lot. You're getting max value by getting that engineer, but he's got eyes on Masterleaf's expansion here, which is really, really what he wants to see.
Okay, Tech Lab is up, so we've got the opportunity for Tier 3. We've got supercharged particle beams, or I guess just charged particle beams, finishing up there. I thought it was going to be Tib Core, but no, it's actually charged particle beams, and we'll see how that exactly affects this chemical plant on the high ground. Most likely for that Catalyst Missile. Masterleaf doesn't quite have the cash just yet, but he is going to be calling in the Vapor Bomb instead. And the Catalyst Missile, there it is on the other refinery to nuke the economy of Dimitri at his natural expansion.
Yep, so base push coming in here from Dimitri, or I'm sorry, from Masterleaf, and we're seeing that infantry finally catching up. Obelisk goes down, but not a lot here to be able to stop this push here from Masterleaf. We're going to have to see a lot of APMO watchtowers being dropped, maybe some support back from the War Factory at home, but he doesn't have any eco left.
The GG comes out from Dimitri, and Masterleaf puts a point on the board. Back in the back line, Masterleaf had undefended harvesters 1v1ing a Titan, but the Titan got sniped by an Obelisk at the last moment, so Masterleaf decided, I'm not going to put this Obelisk on the front line. I'm going to use it to defend my harvesters. He snipes that Titan. Moments later, Dimitri calls the GG. He had just used that EMP in that corner, and Masterleaf, after 3 weird games, puts a point on the board. I love the way this guy is playing here today. What a phenomenal set of games to open the July Ladder Wars with.
Yeah, and while Masterleaf, I'm sure, knowing his personality, I'm sure he's not happy with how these games have gone, at least the first 2. I can say that he is certainly putting on a show for us, certainly showing some unusual tactics. Slightly more standard in that last game, is certainly more infantry heavy with the Black Hand and using that flame weaponry around the sides, just very effective. Doing a very nice job of making sure that stuff that he's using is not being thrown away. So recovering that flame tank allowed him to put a lot of pressure on that MCV, which really kept Dimitri from getting his eco up and running on that expansion field, and that's what allowed Masterleaf to really seal the deal.
And now, for the first time, Dimitri has to choose a map. And he chooses the map WC, which I think does stand for Water Closet. He might be heading to the bathroom, or that is a map name that I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn what WC is in terms of map name. But man,
with these maps, there should be a water closet at this point.
Actually, yeah, why has no one made Tournament Water Closet? That feels like that's an obvious choice.
Map makers, get on it.
I'm sure they're taking orders from us 13 years later. But wow, what an amazing set of games. Also, I'm so glad watching the chat, like scrolling back through the chat as the games are like playing out and seeing how people are responding, but knowing what they're about to see at the same time. Tournament Tower is going to be the map. But yeah, some people making some claims, and then also some people, you know, criticizing one player or the other, but then that player ends up taking it. So always fun to see how these games actually turn out, because Masterleaf, I cannot believe that is how that game turned out, and then he won. Like, that was the build, those were the strats, and then that is how it all turned out.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like he felt more in his element in that game. And you know, getting his pushes to have the effect that he was looking for, that seemed more of the classic Masterleaf that I'm used to. So I'm excited to see. Looks like we're headed to Tournament Tower, and I'm curious to see what he has in mind here.
That was such an incredibly scrappy, like, low eco game where I think at like 8.5 minutes, both players were sort of in the middle of their natural expansions in terms of harvesting, which is not at all what you typically would see for a game of Kane's Wrath. I mean, 8.5 minutes. Hey, let's go ahead and have third bases by that point. Like, what are we doing messing around with natural expansions still at 8.5 minutes? But that is where we were, and I cannot believe it took them that long. But it was such a weird, scrappy game that was so incredibly low eco almost the entire time.
And a big shout out to you for catching the fact that Masterleaf was grabbing that blue Tiberium in the center of the map. That's the thing that I tend to miss a lot of the times as a non-pro player. Is just the ability for the player putting on pressure to really capitalize on that economy.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what sustained Masterleaf through that early game. We have, once again, another faction switch up here from Masterleaf. This guy just cannot stick with anything. He cannot play anything normal, and we are going to be jumping in here to Tournament Tower for game number 4. The map score is 1-2, and ultimately that score still favors this player in the top left. This is Dimitri. Meanwhile, in the bottom right, switching it up to Zocom as the blue. This is Masterleaf.
Steel Talons versus Zocom. So artillery versus no artillery. Strong air power versus no air power. I'm curious to see how this will work as we get into the late game, and more importantly, I suspect that Masterleaf's intention here with Zocom is less the air power and more the Marv.
I do wonder what his strat is going to be, because you mentioned a Marv, but that's late game. Masterleaf has not been a fan of the late game this entire series. He has been playing fast, furious, scrappy, early game builds. And maybe he does. Maybe he mixes it up. This one is the one where he goes, 10 harvesters right out of the gate. He's heading towards that late game, and he is happy to play this one out a little bit longer.
I would like to see that pivot from Masterleaf, just because he's been going for very early aggression, very early and often in these last few games, and he's found some moderate success, but I would like to see maybe more of a standard, just defensive build from him this time around, and I think try to get to that late game, because that's really where he's going to find the advantage.
Well, our wishes may be granted. Second refinery gets dropped by Masterleaf right on time. Dimitri's is maybe a few seconds late, but okay. I didn't see the second refinery on Dimitri's side, and I got a little worried. But no, he did have that queued up. So everything is normal. Everything is average. But of course, this is Tournament Tower. It's a bit of a weirdo map, and it's not a map we see very often here in Kane's Wrath. So are the players going to be familiar with it? Yes, of course. It's been in the map pool since the beginning. It was there in Tib Wars. A lot of these guys played Tib Wars before Kane's Wrath. But it's not one that they're going to be super familiar with. And that's where Masterleaf might have something weird that works on a small map. Ultimately, this was Dimitri's map choice, though, so maybe Dimitri is the one who has something a little bit weird.
Yeah, so it looks like Masterleaf is actually going to move out with an APC engineer. I would assume he's going for a snipe on the Tib Spike, maybe trying to steal that away, because the Tib Spikes play a big factor in this game.
And he also calls in the reinforcements at the same time. That's a double barracks, but he sold off the barracks on the low ground. And yes, we do have the special reinforcements with their yellow suits called in here. Rockets on the front line, infantry as well, and there's actually going to be the Tib field suit upgrade. So they get landed, and then they immediately get upgraded as well. And I did lose sight of that APC.
MCV caught out in the open here for Dimitri, going to take a lot of damage. Now it's going to be under a lot of pressure. We've got Tib field suits on these rifleman squads as well, and rocket squads, so they're going to be able to take a lot of damage from these non-AP ammo watchtowers. They're also going to get some foxholes down. I'm loving this. And we're going to see Titans out, but Titans not going to really be a good way of dealing with this infantry. So really, really interesting transition here from Masterleaf.
That MCV is down below half health, which once again, Masterleaf, he switches to Zocom, but he's still playing infantry. He's still playing for a scrappy early game. Power plant finally comes down. The body block as the Grenadiers step onto the front line. The MCV will go down. The rockets are too much. AP ammo finishes, but it just doesn't matter. Masterleaf snipes that MCV. He's fighting for his tournament life, and he gets the engineer cap on a refinery, on a harvester, on the back line. The cross map is complete as Masterleaf's front line crumbles. Dimitri needs to make this push work right here, right now.
Oh man, absolutely phenomenal move here from Masterleaf. We do see a lot of pressure out here from Dimitri in the middle of the map right now. And it looks like Masterleaf doesn't have much to stop this at this point, because he's invested a lot in that push and lost a lot of that infantry. I don't think Dimitri realizes the pressure that he can put right now, because there's just nothing here to defend. But it's giving Masterleaf time to recover.
Well, Masterleaf, behind all of that, had $6.5 grand in the bank. Dimitri dwindled under 1,000 credits at the same time. That harvester steal and that refinery cutoff from Masterleaf was such a great follow-up to this attack. These Predator tanks are stepping a little bit far forward, but this is a lot of firepower from a Steel Talons player. I don't know that you want to send Zocom Preds versus Steel Talons this early, this early in the vehicle tech tree. I mean, there is not a lot here for a Zocom player who opened with mass infantry.
Yeah, and Zocom Pred's never going to be particularly helpful, except for dealing with immediate crises situations. So, we're seeing a lot of infantry foxholes being actually used against him now. His own foxholes that were de-garrisoned or killed off by the Grenadiers now being utilized against him. Not so great. Titans sitting in the back line are not really getting involved in this fight. They certainly could be, but forcing Zocom to produce Predator tanks in order to keep the pressure on, it's where you want to be.
And in this case, Dimitri has bought enough time to get his own MCV out. So Masterleaf had a window of opportunity, but his army dried up. He had the cash in the bank, but he didn't have the army on the field. And now that he's got the army on the field, Dimitri has rebuilt that MCV. Dimitri is re-expanding to the high ground, and it's going to be a little bit slower, but Masterleaf is on the cusp of taking us to a Game 5. Dimitri is on the cusp of sending Masterleaf to the lower bracket.
Yeah, and back in Masterleaf's main base, there's a heavy harvester that has a ton of Tiberium in it that has just been used as a scout, apparently, still sitting in Masterleaf's main.
That's the one he
Masterleaf
stole.
has it. Oh, you're right. Oh, you're right. That's exactly what it is. Masterleaf has not exactly recycled his base back at home to get maximum efficiency out of this, but he is pushing back on that front line. So winning the front line engagement, pushing that Steel Talons player backwards, and hopefully going to be putting pressure on this expansion, because if that Steel Talons player is able to get into the late game, get that tech up and running, get those rail guns, Zocom's going to be in for some serious hurt.
And Dimitri is all about the delay tactics. A power plant and a silo coming down to body block on the front line. Masterleaf all about the pressure. Even deploying his command post here to the front line, starts AP ammo immediately. And I don't know, there might be an opportunity for him to come up with some kind of infantry switch up here in the mid to late game. But as soon as Masterleaf was able to dislodge that foothold of infantry that Dimitri had built, he actually had an opportunity to put some pressure on, and now it's going to continue. Zone Shatterers! He's done it, boys!
Wow.
The Zone Shatterers are seeing a tournament appearance for the first time in what feels like years. They're here on the front line, and this is 6 Titans that are getting scared by just sheer numbers, just the ant swarm of Predator tanks.
Zocom Predator tanks pushing back Titans in the mid to late game.
It's not
That is not
something
something
you see
you're used
very
to
often.
seeing.
Dimitri, 21,000 credits down in terms of total resources gathered. Harvester's starting to get targeted down. The Titans have all pulled back, and there's now a barracks on the front line. Masterleaf is looking to switch up his army composition once again.
So this is the thing that Masterleaf has to be careful of. He's putting a lot of pressure on. He has to not take terrible trades here. He can certainly trade in Dimitri's favor right now because he has the pressure advantage, but he has to take out. Oh, he gets the MCV and the GG.
The MCV and the GG. You're right, though. If he would have lost that army, his economy was spent. He had no Tiberium behind that, so that was a do-or-die situation. But Masterleaf does it. He says, it's Game 5 time. We get the ace match here in the first best-of-5 series of the day. We've got more matches going on, but Masterleaf says it's not going to be a quick tournament. I am not going down without a fight.
So, I'm going to throw out a conspiracy theory here. Masterleaf threw the first 2 games just so we could get a Game 5 in our first series. Big ups to my man Masterleaf for giving us this Game 5. And battling back, but man, these have been some very, very unusual games. This one probably more standard, but again, it's just so strange to see unusual unit compositions from these guys. And again, it's the transitions that we're seeing. It's just each player anticipating the other so well, knowing what's coming, and then just reacting very quickly.
What a set of games from these guys. Masterleaf versus Dimitri. This matchup, maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago, would have been a one-sided stomp. We would have seen Masterleaf just dominate Dimitri. But I remember for me, the day that Dimitri sort of showed up to his own in terms of a player was for the East versus West series. And that is where Dimitri was actually able to showcase his skill, and where we actually did see that, okay, no, he can go toe-to-toe with these guys who are the best in the game, and we're seeing it yet again here. Dimitri is stepping up to the plate, and he's going toe-to-toe with Masterleaf, but critically, he has not been able to close out the series yet. He has been on match point for half the series now, and he just hasn't been able to close it.
Again, you're playing against one of the better players in the game, and Dimitri, I would honestly say, no slouch. He's been around for so long. He's played against Masterleaf so many games. I'm sure it's in the hundreds, if not thousands of games that they've played against one another. So they know each other pretty well. And Dimitri's been around for so long that I wouldn't certainly count him out at this point. but Masterleaf showing his technical skill to remain in this series down 0-2 in a best of 5 and to climb back to a 2-2 where it's anybody's game at this point.
And truly, it is anybody's game. Those first 2 matches, Masterleaf, he was making them close, but the weird builds were so disadvantageous for him that it ended up just like sort of not mattering that he is such a good player. And Dimitri was able to take those games ultimately. But then these last 2 have also been kind of weird and scrappy games. But Masterleaf has been able to take them. They've not been as aggressive in the very, very early game. If you think about those first 2 flame rushes that he did, they were very expensive in the first 2-3 minutes, or I guess flame and then infantry rush. But they were very expensive in the first 2-3 minutes, and then their cost sort of petered out, whereas the stuff he's won with has been much more expensive in like minutes 4 to 5.
Yeah, and Masterleaf, exactly like you said, those expensive moves early on. If somehow Dimitri or if Masterleaf makes it through his next opponent, this would be an opportunity for somebody to take advantage, knowing that Masterleaf is going for some of these unconventional things up front, potentially going to look to strike back with some kind of a first strike themselves.
Oh boy, oh boy. For a moment, we did have here in game number 5, Steel Talons versus Zocom queued up, but I think it's a little bit of the show of the hand. Masterleaf is feeling like his best chance, his best opportunity is going to be going with a faction that he is most familiar with, and one that he has a lot of experience winning all sorts of games with, a faction that a lot of players are going to expect Masterleaf to break out. And playing as the green, yes, playing as Traveler 59, this is Masterleaf. Meanwhile, on the left side, choosing Tournament Rift as the map of choice here for game number 5, playing pink, give it up for Dimitri.
I'm loving it. Masterleaf on the classic Traveler 59. We're getting Tournament Rift, which is by far the most played map in tournament settings since the beginning of time, I'm pretty confident. And definitely going to be a home field advantage for both players. So we're going to have to see what the strategy choices are out of both sides.
Here's the thing. I have not seen Tournament Rift in a tournament setting in a couple of years. You do have these 4 Tiberium spikes. There are 2 of them which are very much poker spikes in the bottom side of the map. Combat Engineer versus Buzzers down there. Triple Buzzers, triple Riflemen. And depending on the timing, the Riflemen can gain the advantage, but the control is going to have to be perfect. Never mind, there's actually 6 Buzzers. They are swarming in from all sides, and this Engineer is going for the kill as well. That Engineer gets several shots off. He helps eliminate some of those Buzzers. And ultimately, Masterleaf is going to have to hide his Engineer. Oh, that was such a tricky fight over the spikes in the bottom side of the map. And he's going to try and jump on this Engineer, but the Combat Engineer gets the shots off, and he kills every single buzzer. He gets them all.
No way.
He gets the reveal. He saw Masterleaf's Engineer go into stealth mode in between the spikes. And right here, right now, what a bizarre trade in the South.
Unbelievable. Was that buffed? I've never seen an Engineer just go absolutely man mode and just wreck a set of buzzers. That was crazy.
That was almost the perfect amount of damage done to the buzzers before they went for the Engineer, for the Engineer to kill them before they got to him. Like, that Engineer took a couple of pot shots at the buzzers as they were going for the Riflemen, and the Engineer was able to do enough damage with the Rifleman that he was able to survive. Dimitri goes immediately for the middle of the map. The man is playing Steel Talons versus Traveler 59, which is not a usual choice. Nobody plays Steel Talons versus Traveler 59. And Dimitri is doing it, and he's also going for the center field in game number 5. Ridiculous.
Yeah, this is a bold choice. This may spell his demise unless he really has something specific in mind, which I have to imagine that he does, given that this is a game 5. He would have to be insane to not be considering that that there's some serious firepower coming in from Masterleaf. playing mostly standard here, Masterleaf. We did see, obviously, an early engineer opener from him. He did end up a little bit behind, but we do see a harvester out from Masterleaf down to that blue Tiberium. We were talking about that earlier. That blue Tiberium early especially is going to be super, super helpful to recover that financial loss from the beginning. And the question is Dimitri's forward push with this base going to be a little bit too much to deal with the inevitable cultist transition?
Okay, so we have the blue Tiberium, but we also have a one base tech out of Masterleaf. So he's gone one base, and he moved his MCV down to the natural expansion, but it's actually just been a fast tech build out of Masterleaf. He's now got the stasis, he's now got the tier 3, he's got the portal in that northern position. He's, of course, going for the Prodigy. He may also be going for cultists behind that, but this MCV is extremely aggressively positioned, and there is a couple of Titans on the back line for Dimitri to defend against these 3 Seeker tanks, which are potentially hunting harvesters. Nothing will be found at the current moment, but this is going to be an extremely awkward couple of minutes as these guys race towards the finish of this series.
Yeah, Prodigy out on the field as well. I think Masterleaf saw the writing on the wall and was expecting this base push to come. Construction yard is very far forward. That Prodigy from Masterleaf been spotted by a radar scan. Nice radar scan there from Dimitri. And now he's going to have to play defensive here. He's getting shot up. Oh, he loses it.
Oh, that APM of Wolverine right on the front line snipes the Prodigy, and that's not the end of the world for Masterleaf, but that was a big investment that he spent on in the early game. Now, this tripod in the middle of the map could be able to find a couple of shots here against the Harvesters. He's going to be trading out against the Titan. The Seekers come in. They absorb a couple of shots here. He also does scout that there's orcas on the map, that there's an airfield in the middle for Dimitri. One Harvester barely escaping, so low on health, but now this one tripod is just going to be kind of hanging out in Masterleaf's base. Not a slouch. Dimitri is looking to cross map. Area mind control is going to come in. The Wolverine almost gets the snipe on another Prodigy, but there's going to be the blink forward, and there's going to be the Eradicator Hexpod here to eliminate these forces on the front line. The tripod goes down, and Dimitri's natural expansion technically is still alive. It just isn't as healthy as he would like it to be.
Yeah, this is a weird game. I love the Orca transition too. This is really cool. I wouldn't have expected this, but it makes a lot of sense. It gives him a lot of presence around the map as opposed to using pit bulls. And so I'm digging this, and it's going to force the anti-air drops, which are going to be useless against these Titans. And so I'm curious if we're going to see something like maybe Mechapeds, but Mechapeds still not great against these Titans. I don't know what the choice is going to have to be here from Masterleaf.
I mean, he's got 2 descents inside of this Eradicator. Maybe it's just going to be Hexalame until the end of time, and he just knows that he can exist forever with this Eradicator Hexapod. That might be his one and only strategy, is delay the game, extend it out, turn it into a grind fest. Dimitri is now getting basically free reign of that middle Tiberium field, but he never reestablished that second refinery on it, so he's a little bit low in terms of total income. He could have a much beefier economy behind this push, but he's been obviously much more focused on his army and building this push.
Yeah, so very, very heavy forward-facing army here from Dimitri. He's really trying not to play defensive at all.
Once again, the Prodigy gets sniped. Those hammerheads go down moments after, but that's going to be another delay to the Hexalame. The Tier 3 gets shot up, which means the Stasis Chamber survives, but if he wants another Prodigy, he's going to have to reinvest in the tech.
Yeah, Tier 3 going down for Traveler 59 at this stage in the game is really important because it's going to prevent that Prodigy from being recovered. It's going to prevent any further support for that Hexapod in the way of tripods, Mechapeds, things like that. So that's really where Traveler 59 wants to be right now, and it's going to give Dimitri potentially the opportunity to tech behind this and maybe look to go into railguns. I feel like railguns would be an awesome transition at this point.
As long as he can keep that Prodigy down, as long as he can deny that teleportation, yeah, the combination of railguns and EMP could actually just end this game in a single moment. Dimitri could also sell off that War Factory back in his natural expansion, get his economy up a little bit stronger. Masterleaf, without the Prodigy, doesn't have the opportunity to Hexalame like he was wanting to, which means this army just has to be run away from. Low power mode for Masterleaf as all of his upgraded power plants get eliminated, and this Warp Chasm is going to be forced to to be sold off here. Nerve Center gets eliminated. Stasis Chamber is up here in the north. He actually built 2 of those, expecting it to be destroyed. Army gets split into 2. Dimitri is going for the portal. He shuts that down. Whatever was building will not finish. Gunwalker's getting eliminated, and this blink out of the Eradicator Hexapod will not save it if this army collapses, but the army has yet to collapse on this Eradicator.
So the Eradicator Hexapod, obviously the most important thing for Masterleaf to keep alive. Bear in mind, something we haven't mentioned is the fact that this Eradicator Hexapod is recovering funds for his base by killing off units. So the trading against this Eradicator Hexapod is so insanely lack of value, because unless you're able to take out that Hexapod, it's just going to continue to churn out cash to push this tier 3.
Cultists are back onto the field. Of course, you don't have the Prodigy, but you do have Cultists, and these Corruptors in the Storm Column keeping this Eradicator alive for so much longer than it ordinarily would. Masterleaf with 12 grand in the bank. If he had all of that cash converted into an army, he would be standing a much better chance here. This is an extremely costly attack, though, for Dimitri, and those buzzers swarming so much of the infantry. Ultimately, the Eradicator goes down, but Dimitri hasn't been stopped. He's got an engineer. As the GG comes out, the tripod will be recovered, and Masterleaf will fall in game number 5. Dimitri takes the first series.
Man, I did not give Dimitri enough credit for that early push. I was really thinking that he was going to be in a bad spot, but he stopped that Prodigy early. I think that is what saved his life, because he got to that big snowball of an army up front, and then it was just too much for Masterleaf to try to hold off.
Oh my gosh, Dimitri has done it. He will be taking that first series in the upper bracket. Now, we are not seeing all of the games. This event is playing out live in front of your eyes, which means let's go ahead and take a quick look at the bracket as we see who is advancing down in the southern half of the bracket. It is looking like Buka beat Eclipse 2-1 and Cyberstorm beat Gaseous 2-1, which means Masterleaf will fall down to face Cyberstorm in a best of 5, and the loser of Futurama vs. Bike Rush will fall down to face Buka, which I have to assume is going to be Futurama, but, you know, Futurama has beat Bike Rush a time or two in a tournament in the past, so hope always remains alive. But what an insane first set of games between Masterleaf and Dimitri.
A really great way to start things off. I have to imagine that Masterleaf is frustrated, but man, hats off to both of these guys for putting on a show in that first series. Both played very well. I think even the Hexapod play at the end there was about as good as you could hope for given that situation. It was just it was a tough spot that he ended up finding himself in. Couple wrong moves, man, and these games turn around very quickly. That's the level of play that we're at. And so it's very cool to see this high level of play this far down the line from when this game came out, and still seeing these guys continuing to show some love.
There are so many games where people see the Eradicator Hexapod, they see that Prodigy, and they just throw up their hands and they say, "What do? I can't stop it." And so many viewers go, "That looks like it's impossible to stop." Dimitri makes it look easy. You just have to snipe the Prodigy twice immediately before it does anything, and then kill your opponent's tech. Easy mode, says Dimitri in Game 5. I can't believe that all crescendoed on Tournament Rift as well. But, man, what an insane set. And yeah, Dimitri making it look easy to just kill off a mind control Traveler 59 player.
Yeah, and the best mind control Traveler 59 player, you know, maybe with an argument of potentially Bike Rush in the mix, but honestly, Masterleaf, I think anybody who thinks Traveler 59, they're thinking Masterleaf. And in a Game 5 scenario, you know, Masterleaf has certainly hung in with the best, been around since the dawn of time, and so to put him down on a classic map like that, on his faction, with Steel Talons really showing how strong it is now, having been fixed after all this time. An
amazing set, and once again, coming down so much to the lack of hexalamine. Masterleaf needed that Eradicator Hexapod to slow down the army, to slow down Dimitri, and to extend the game out. If Masterleaf could have made full use of that 12 grand plus the remaining cash he had on the map in his natural expansion, that would have been an actually fair fight. But it came down to like an Eradicator Hexapod, a couple of Corruptors, versus, and a Buzzer Swarm, which honestly the Buzzer Swarm did huge damage to the infantry, but, didn't really matter. But it's like Eradicator Hexapod, Corruptors, versus everything in the world from the Steel Talons player. And it was all about delay, 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 and that was the one thing that Masterleaf wasn't able to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just I feel like we could analyze this one to death. It's just the straight up play from Dimitri versus the classic unconventional play. It's weird to say that, but classic unconventional play from Masterleaf. It worked out in Dimitri's favor. I've seen plenty of people put down by that tricky play from Masterleaf, and I don't know if we caught it in the video. I was paying attention to it a little bit off to the side, but Masterleaf wasn't just in that one engagement on that last map. He was also he had built I think it was a gravity stabilizer or whatever the airfield equivalent is for Skrin, and he had sent off some aircraft over to deal with the harvesters on the backside for Dimitri. So if that push hadn't gone perfectly well the way that it did, it would have been very, very bad for Dimitri as the game went on. So just very, very small choices that are really, really decisive in these games, and I'm really digging it.
And also, that game had that heroic engineer at the beginning, sniping all of those buzzers. Like, what an amazing game. It was fast, it was action-packed, it was furious. There were maybe some mistakes there, but I feel like, and Masterleaf will probably disagree, because even when Masterleaf plays a good game, he is very self-critical. He always calls his games bad, even if they're good. So I know he's going to be beating himself up for that loss. But, like, Dimitri, it felt like Dimitri outplayed Masterleaf rather than Masterleaf made a bunch of mistakes and, like, Masterleaf tripped over himself. It was like Dimitri just had, by 1 inch, all of the right moves, and he was just there a second before Masterleaf was ready for him. It was like all of these things were just right enough for Dimitri that Masterleaf couldn't deal with it. And in the end, Masterleaf takes the L, Dimitri takes the win, 3-2. Almost a reverse sweep. Dimitri opens up 2 games, and then he takes 3 to actually finish out the series. Or he opens up with 2 wins and takes 3 games to finish out the series.
Yeah, and on top of that, to piggyback is, it seemed like the standard play provided Dimitri just the most flexibility to do what he needed to do in order to respond to these crazy moves by Masterleaf. Masterleaf certainly had the interesting tactics at play, and if they had worked, and when they did work, they worked very well. The Marked of Kane play that we saw earlier, all of his other various strategies that he put into action, the SOCOM Predator tanks on Tournament Tower. I mean, just crazy choices, but ultimately very effective. And so Dimitri, it required him to just sit on those mostly standard builds, keep playing, don't give up, and try to recover from these weird engagements that he ends up taking.
Now, behind all of that, let's jump back to the bracket because it has been updated. I cannot believe that it was a 3-2 in both sets of the kind of the quarterfinals, but the semifinals of the upper bracket. 3-2 Dimitri over Masterleaf, and then 3-2 Bike Rush over Futurama. So I'm guessing that was a pretty amazing set, Futurama versus Bike, and I'm excited to jump into Bike versus Dimi. And that's going to be the winner's bracket final. It is a short tournament. It is an 8-man tournament, but it is double elimination. As you can see, there's a lower bracket progressing on And we're going to be getting to some of those lower bracket games, but of course we're going to be staying with the upper bracket, and then we're probably going to be seeing the lower bracket finals. So yeah, two amazing sets, and actually the lower bracket was also best of 3, and both of those ended in 2-1, so I didn't even compute that, but so far every single match in this event has gone to the ace. Every single one has been a barn burner, and hopefully that trend continues.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate to do this to you, Sybert. I think you're on a roll. I'm going to leave you on a roll. I'm going to step away for just a moment just to say good morning to the family. Everybody's just waking up here, so just going to go do my rounds, and then I'll be right back. So hopefully I don't miss anything in the meantime. It sounds like we're headed into Bike Rush and Dimitri.
That indeed we are. Now, of course, for us here on the cast, it is a little bit of an early morning, not particularly early. I think it was like 8 o'clock for Sparty and 7 o'clock for myself. So not super early by any means, but it is morning time, and he's off to say good morning to his family. But we have another best of 5 ahead of us. It's not going to be a best of 7 until the grand finals, but we do have another best of 5 in the works. It is going to be Bike Rush Owns versus Dimitri, as we already were referencing, and I'm a little bit sad that we don't get to see these guys in a 7-game series. It's only going to be a 5-game series, but, you know, you can't complain too much with absolutely amazing sets of games. Bike Rush versus Dimitri. The last time these guys met in a tournament, if my memory serves me, it was a one-sided match for Bike Rush. Now, that was more than 6 months ago, to what I remember, but I think it was either a 3-0 or a 4-0. It might have been a 4-1. Dimitri sneaking in a win there, but ultimately it was Bike Rush favored, and that is what we're expecting today. Now, Dimitri has been getting better and better over the last couple of years. Maybe he can turn something around. Maybe he can make something happen. And we'll hopefully see a very close match once again. Yeah, Steel Talons. That's right. Dimitri did play like half that series as Steel Talons. So maybe he's going to continue Steel Talons versus Bike Rush. I think that would be a bit of a surprise. But I think that would be a bit of a surprise, but maybe he will do it. Steel Talons for half of a series, and he still gets the win. Great moves there by Dimitri. Hopefully Masterleaf can rally. He is up against Cyberstorm, and I hope to see Masterleaf come back at least to the losers, to the lower bracket semifinal. I hope he makes it through Cyberstorm. But at the same time, maybe Cyberstorm is powered up and he is ready to go versus Masterleaf. And he's going to maybe just be able to crush on through and kind of make things look easy. Or maybe Cyberstorm is going to crush on through. But either way, they're going to be going up against the loser of Bike Rush versus Dimitri. Whoever makes it through that lower bracket is ultimately going to have to face Bike Rush or Dimitri, which is a tough way to go no matter what. Bike Rush owns. What? Dimitri might not play? That would, of course, be very sad if Dimitri did not play. Oh, apparently Bike Rush says he's never actually, Dimitri and him have never actually met in an event, so I must be thinking of something else. I must be thinking of Bike Rush versus someone else, but hopefully Dimitri puts on a good show here. I guess this will be their first series ever. I don't know if maybe Bike Rush is forgetting a couple of the matches, or if Dimitri and him have truly never met in a tournament, because if so, that would actually be kind of a surprise. These guys have been playing in the same game for so long, and if they had never met, maybe they've played some show matches or something in the past. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, but at any rate, Bike Rush versus Dimitri. This might be their inaugural match, their first ever meeting in a tournament setting. You know, maybe I was just thinking of some practice games or something like that, but we'll see. Either way, we are, of course, waiting for Dimitri to show up. We're waiting for Dimitri to load in and steal his nerves. He was able to steal his talons. Can he steal his nerves and take on Bike Rush owns?
Steal his talons. I am going to call the dad joke police on that one.
I mean...
The pun police, maybe.
That's fair. I'll accept it. Take me away in handcuffs. I'm guilty. But yeah, I don't know if you saw the in-room chat, but Bike Rush Owns was saying that this is going to be the first time that he ever meets Dimitri in an event, which is like, he just said maybe they played before and he just can't remember.
I'm sure they've played before.
Well, no, I mean in a tournament event, in a tournament series.
Oh, okay.
But if so, that would be pretty cool to have the first inaugural Bike Rush versus Dimitri match, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, Bike Rush Owns is a tough opponent. He hasn't been playing as much necessarily this year as in some years past, but Bike Rush Owns is basically never bad. Even, when he's sleep deprived, when he's played a ton of matches, when he hasn't been practicing very much, he's pretty much never bad. And it just comes down to, does Dimitri, is he able to read Bike Rush well enough? And is he able to see through the scary, scary image that Bike Rush puts in front of people? Bike Rush has a way of kind of weirding people out.
Yeah, it's just the name, man. He's definitely a legend in this community. Same with Masterleaf, if not probably more scary on Bike Rush's end. Just being such a dominant force in this game for so long. And so I'm looking at the bracket, not to completely change the topic here, but looking at the bracket, I think every single series has gone to an ace match.
I think you must have been talking to your family when I mentioned that earlier. But yes, you are correct. To circle back to what we were talking about earlier. Every single set. 3-2, 3-2, and then 2 sets of 2-1 as well. And hopefully that continues, because it's gonna be great if every single match of this tournament. It would almost be suspicious if every match went to the ace match. You mentioned Masterleaf conspiracy theory of dropping the first 2 games just so that we could have an ace match. But that would actually be suspicious if every game in an 8-man double elimination went to the final game, if they all went to the ace.
Okay, bigger conspiracy theory. Every player's in on it. They're all going to go to the ace match today, including the winners bracket finals.
They've just all conspired, like, hey, we have to make it look good, but we're only going to do ace matches. They were like, we want this tournament to take as long as possible. We want it to be max amount of games.
Yep. So it looks like we're headed into semifinals, best of 5 again, and then best of 7 finals.
Yeah,
very
man.
Interesting.
Semifinals of the upper bracket. We've got ourselves a best of 5, and then lower bracket is best of 3 all the way through. And that does mean that the lower bracket finals will be best of 3, but it also does mean the event will be short. It's great to see events with longer series. It's great to see events with bigger sets of games, but it's also nice to have these events that are a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. You can play them out in a single day. You can play them out, hopefully, in under 6 hours. If it plays out in longer than 6 hours, they're going to make a liar out of me. I told my wife, I was like, all right, this is wife Bert, this is going to be done, pretty quick. It's only 8 guys. It's a pretty short event. And she is a very patient woman and has, she's put up with my yelling in the spare room for a long time. So she continues to be patient, and I continue to be grateful for that patience. But I also don't want to be a liar, give her a timeline that's no good, tell her things that aren't true. So hopefully these guys, wrap this up before like the 6-hour mark.
That would be ideal, because I know I'm certainly not going to be able to go that distance with you. So I'm hopeful that I can follow this one through all the way to the end. But I'm gonna hang in there as long as I can. I'm gonna read the temperature in the home as I notice tempers flaring. I may have to bow out, but I suspect I should be in the clear here for a while.
That's good.
My
that's
family incredibly patient, and I am undeserving of such patience.
We're both unworthy. We both have patient families who are like, all right, Dan's going to go over there and yell in his room by himself. He's going to talk to his internet weirdos and then shout about video games for the next 4 hours. Like, it's what I like to do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 1. We are back on Pipeline Problems, and we are back with another best of 5, the upper bracket semifinals. And once again, kicking it off with that pink, with that crane, this is Dimitri in the south. He has chosen Pipeline Problems as the starting map, which is great to see 2 series in a row, but playing Scrin in the north, this is Bike Rush Owns.
Yep, and we're seeing an early engineer out here from Bike Rush. He wants to grab that Tib Spike, wants to make sure that he's got that eco going for the entire game. No good luck, have fun coming out from Bike Rush, so Dimitri a little bit tilted from the beginning, but that's okay. I'm sure he's going to have to make it work, but going to be standard eco builds from both of these guys, it looks like.
The STFU comes out from Bike Rush instead. I assume that's a friendly STFU and not like an I'm actually mad STFU. But one thing, Sparty, you've been gone for a long, long time. You haven't been around the scene in a while. I was kind of wondering if you noticed this. The cashback sale for refineries is no longer 500 smackaroos. Did you notice that in 1.02 plus R20, or I don't know if it was actually R20, it might have been an earlier match, or an earlier patch. Yeah, they upped it from 500 for a refinery to 700.
Interesting. So I assume that's meant to be anti-catalyst missile solution?
I'm not exactly sure, because in Kane's Wrath, going from Tib Wars to Kane's Wrath, they nerfed the resale value of refineries specifically to help slow down the economy. It was one of the changes that the developers made. And so like most buildings, if they're full health, you get half of the cash back. So refineries being, I actually don't remember now, are they 2,500 or $3,000? But you should get 1,500 back for them, and they nuked it down to like 500, which in terms of the scaling for all of the other buildings doesn't make any sense. That's completely out of balance with the rest of the game, and it was just this one specific fix to like slow down refinery recycling. And so it
certainly makes sense from the perspective of, you know, what are the buildings that you're going to build as part of your infrastructure that you're going to recycle pretty regularly, and it's going to be those refineries. Yeah.
So they've upped it to 700, and they've kind of I guess adjusted that. Ooh, stasis. After some insane games in the first series, this is a full macro-oriented match here on Pipeline Problems. Game 1 of set number 2 in the upper bracket for us, and it's going to be Command Post in the south. It's going to be Stasis in the north. No upgrades, though, coming out of that Scrin Stasis. The MCV move will be spotted by Dimitri's Rifleman, and it'll be the Phase! The Phase locks down that Command Post and the refinery and 2 harvesters. Sheesh.
Oh, yeah.
And by that, I mean stasis chamber. Yeah, that's not phase, that's stasis.
Wasn't going to call you on it, but yeah, it catches 2 harvesters as well. Very nice stasis shield. It's and stopping the command post from upgrading AP ammo against Scrin, pretty important. So actually going to be very nice here for Bike Rush.
And there is a small chance, I don't think Dimitri was going for this, but there is a small chance that Dimitri was also going for Tier 3 behind that, and that it canceled out the Tier 3. I don't think it was, because he had just moved his MCV to the 3rd base location, so he probably was going for those refineries. He probably wasn't going Tier 3, but, you know, anything's possible, and if that was a Tier 3 delay, that's even a bigger win for Bike Rush Owns.
Now, I'm trying to think if there's any innate advantage to Skrin over either of the two sub-factions of Reaper 17 or Traveler 59. I'm not thinking of anything obvious.
Stasis, man.
So, well,
Traveler
stasis,
59
true.
has the temporal wormhole or the slow field instead of the stasis, and man, that stasis to
Yeah.
nuke enemy tech like that can be absolutely massive. Check this out. Couple of tripods, couple of descents, couple of gunwalkers all at the front base. GG gets called. That's an aggressive GG from Bike Rush Owns. So for one reason or another, Bike Rush Owns ate his spicy Weetabix this morning, and he is feeling feisty.
Yep, Bike Rush looking strong. He's even got the force field generators on these tripods, so going to be extremely difficult to deal with here. So Bike Rush looking in top form. No honest counter to this that I can see.
Well, it doesn't mean our streak is ending of ace matches, but this game number 1 is going to be a quick one regardless. Little over 5.5 minutes. MCB is going down. Third base is completely gutted here for Dimitri. He's piling up more and more cash back at home because he doesn't have any way to spend it. And, well, that will be it. Game number 1 goes to Bike Rush Owns, and we'll see about what that in-game chat meant for the rest of this series. Dimitri may have just said that he's bowing out.
I think these guys are just going to pull the classic attitude, the attitude, and to be fair, Bike Rush started it.
This game might crash out. I mean, there's little contest. Bike Rush Owns, there is a world where... Actually, no, Dimitri is still typing. So he's not DC'd, but the game is crashed for sure.
Hold on. Do you see the mammoth tank down by the war factory? Does this look insane to you, or is it just on my end?
Why are that? What do you mean? That there's
it's
a mammoth tank
completely disassembled and every piece is floating in midair.
Oh,
it is really wild looking.
No, you're lagging out. It's complete on my end. It's like a perfect freeze frame for me. These guys chatting up a storm between the two of them, and well, I think that is the end of the game number 1. Dimitri, I guess, in a world could have turned it around, but this is not going to happen.
Unfortunately, Dimitri not really showing great sportsmanship in light of the fact that Bike Rush was obviously getting a bit cheeky with his aggressive, unsportsmanlike conduct. But I would say it was a non-proportional response there from Dimitri. But again, just bad showing of faith from both guys. Strong play from Bike Rush, but yeah, would love to see the better sportsmanship.
All right, well, I mean, we do have a recorded record of this game, and I guess that is going to be the end of that match. So, wow, amazing start, amazing first game, first series, excuse me, and then not a great start to the next series. And it does mean we might be jumping into the lower bracket. We might be seeing some of that Cyberstorm versus Masterleaf action. I almost called him Cyberleaf, but we might be seeing some of that Cyberstorm versus Masterleaf action. Or we could jump into Futurama versus Buka, which is a series I'm excited to see. Buka has been putting out some good games recently, and Futurama is, he's pretty much always having a good showing. Although Futurama historically has had some tournament difficulties, I'll say. He has had some really bad tournament performances. So he's one of those players who you see fantastic matches from him almost all the time, but he does have those slumps where he hits a bad patch, and it does sometimes happen in a tournament, and you'll see him bomb out of a tournament relatively early. But I mean, here, he went 2-3 versus Bike Rush, so that wasn't an easy series for Bike Rush. It was not a walk or cakewalk for him.
Yeah, so I guess if we can catch the Futurama versus... How do you pronounce his name?
I say Buka.
Buka. Okay.
Buka? I don't know.
I have never actually seen Buka before, so I would certainly be interested to see that series because again, I'm familiar with all of these other players to a certain degree. Cyberstorm, I haven't seen in a very long time in a game, and I'm curious to see like his strength versus Masterleaf because again, Masterleaf is still looking very good even despite not turning out with a win in the winners bracket. But Bike Rush looking deadly, and certainly deadly with the chat as well.
Yeah, more of that game was played out in the chat during the freeze than it was played out in the actual game. So we may jump down. Futurama is actually in the lobby here, but I don't see Buka, so I don't know. Maybe Futurama already beat Buka. It's a best of 3, so he could have 2-0'd him, and they could have been short games. It is possible that, and the bracket just hasn't. Okay, so and the bracket just hasn't been updated. It looks like it's gonna be going to a game 2? Question mark. Dimmy is still in the in the lobby online, so it's not like he's left the tournament. Let's hope that he jumps here into game number 2, and we will get to see what happens.
If Bike Rush is able to hear us, even delayed, I hope he takes the opportunity to like set the BM aside and maybe play out some games. Just let the gameplay speak for itself, man. I get it. You got some skills. You want to talk some smack. There's nothing wrong with that in a lot of cases. But like, let's not take the BM to an upper tier level here. And also Dimitri, gotta have a slightly thicker skin, my man. Just gotta hang in.
Well, we'll see. I would love to see Ruthless Serato as map number 2. I'm not sure if that's actually a map choice, but that is Deadly Serato is one of those maps that was included in the original game, but never really played. It has that river in the middle. It's kind of a weird map because I'm pretty sure it has destructible bridges, so both halves of the map can be completely cut off from each other, and then you just have to keep engineering the bridges to try and get across the map. But I don't know that we're actually going to be seeing that, and hopefully we get some matches soon. Yep, Futurama is still here in the lobby, but no one else is here for the lobby. So I don't know what happened to Buka. Obviously, Buka beat Eclipse, so Buka was here earlier today. But Masterleaf and Cyberstorm, they're in the middle of a game, and we'll see how Masterleaf versus Cyberstorm goes.
Yeah, Masterleaf and Cyberstorm
left.
Yeah, I get that impression. I think I think there's an element of what are the rules for these events as well, and it's like the rules kind of have to be applied across the board, otherwise they don't really work. And so desyncing a game like that is pretty clearly intentional from my perspective, but obviously the tournament officials, Phantom in this particular case, has the unfun journey of having to sort that out and what the solution is going to be. It does look like it's probably going to be just given over to Bike Rush as an overall win, but we will wait and find out.
Yeah, normally with a freeze like that, the player doesn't keep typing in chat. The fact that they were both in chat typing to each other was a little bit strange.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught the part where he says, weird, all of a sudden my PC is lagging right after he got a little bit BM'd. So I'm thinking it's less coincidental, but still a possibility. I'm no programmer, that's for sure.
Yeah, we don't want to jump to any conclusions that someone would sarcastically say, oh, my PC's lagging, as they're lagging out the game. We don't want to jump to any conclusions, so we'll take him at his word. We'll believe what people tell us. But Dimitri's not in the lobby right now, and that's causing a delay of games. And I'm not very happy about the fact that we don't have any games to cast. Sparty, we got this little window of time. We got this magical moment where you and I are in the same place at the same time. And by that, I of course mean virtually in the same place. And we don't have any games to cast. We're just talking nonsense about ego.
Sounds to me like you're looking to 1v1.
We could do some games. I was not actually talking about that, but
I'm totally messing around. You know that I'm messing around. Yeah, it's definitely odd not having games. It's been such a long time that I had assumed some of the old history between players and stuff had kind of died down, but boy, am I just being reaffirmed in the belief that people are who they are. And things typically remain how they were. But all in all, I think we'll see some more good games for sure. We will certainly get into another match. It's just going to be a matter of who. I certainly would love to see some new blood in here. So, I know Futurama is certainly not new by any metric, but I think by comparison with some of the older names that we're seeing here, like Dimitri and Bike Rush and Cyberstorm and Masterleaf, I think Futurama is slightly newer. And correct me if I'm wrong, Futurama comes from Tib Wars, right?
No, I don't know about that. I only know Futurama in Kane's Wrath. But he might be
maybe.
from Tib Wars.
I vaguely remember him being from Tib Wars. I may be completely making that up.
Yeah, Drive, Futurama, a good handful of other players all sort of showed up, from my perspective, while I was gone, somewhere in between like 2016 and 2020. So I am unfamiliar with them, but they maybe were playing matches on a different server. I didn't see them. Or maybe they were playing matches and I just didn't see them. But they're new-ish to me. But at this point, yeah, Futurama feels old to me. But of course to you, he's a little bit newer. Drive, Futurama, some of the other Russian region players. Futurama's not Russian, but some of those players from that region all sort of, in my mind, came to the scene at the same time. Again, they were probably playing their own matches, and I just didn't see it. But glad to have them here, and for you, it'll be kind of a new experience. Buka is also a player that I think you haven't seen many games from, so hopefully we get to see some matches from him.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a game from Buka, so I whether it was something that I was sitting in to watch, or certainly not something that I was in to watch, but even more recently, I'll catch a video here and there. I do actually pay attention to what's going on occasionally, not a lot. There's not a whole lot of great, how should we say, commentators out there left. We're just stuck with Sybert at this point for the most part. So I have to struggle through those videos, my guy. But,
you do. It's a struggle. It's difficult to get through them.
Sybert versus Leaf. There's a game.
Wild.
Oh, it looks like maybe somebody's already in here. Is Zads a commentator? I guess I'm not. Again, I'm a little
Zads
bit
is running his own stream.
Okay. All right. So we should probably let him do his thing, and go and find our own match.
Well, see, maybe we can all hang out together. I know, sometimes the connection in Kane's Wrath can be strained. The more players you put in the game, the more strained it is. So It might be a bit of a tough one in terms of 5 players, but we can try it.
Yeah, it looked
Masterleaf
like
is not opposing, so.
Yeah, it looked like Cyberstorm was deferring to Masterleaf in a show of good faith to give him the opportunity to put up the signal flare if he doesn't want to have a bunch of extra connections in this game, in case he was worried about lag. So I think that's really nice. That's just like, again, it's like a nice change from what we just experienced. It just shows that the community is, it is still a community.
Oh, okay. And we're coming into game number 3. This is a 1-1 in the lower bracket. So this is a best of 3. We don't have the opportunity of, 5 games or anything like that. But we do indeed have another ace match on our hands. So we are keeping up the streak as much as we possibly can. We are going to see as many ace matches as these guys will allow us, and we are finally here on Tiberium Rift. We have got ourselves a fresh game, and it's the last one to close out this series. Spawning as the purple, this is Cyberstorm. Whoa, that zoom is insane. Meanwhile, playing as the red, this is Masterleaf. We can zoom all the way in on this version of the map. No, I got it wrong. Masterleaf is purple. Yeah. Cyberstorm is
I didn't
red.
Want to
oh,
say
well.
It. I was going to correct you if you didn't catch it, but I'm glad you did. So it is going to be Nod versus Marked of Kane. Marked of Kane being over on Masterleaf's side here. I am curious to see what the differences are going to be between these two guys, given the two different factions.
All right, I've got one job, and that's to introduce the players, and that got messed up. But we've seen Tournament Rift, and now we're seeing the classic twist on Tournament Rift.
Yep, and I am expecting that it is probably going to be very heavy bike buggy. I think both of these guys are old school players. They're going to be feeling very comfortable in their element early on. Bike buggy going to be the nice choice, I think, to get some pressure around the map and also make sure to get some scouting.
Macro-oriented openers, so they both are going for at least one harvester and refinery before that bike buggy swarm begins. But, you know, we're not seeing a huge commitment to bike buggy. Just so far for some scouts. There's the second refinery coming in from Cyberstorm. So we'll see. Maybe Masterleaf drops a second war factory after this. You know, maybe he just goes really heavy into the eco. But actually, Masterleaf goes for another harvester. So he is committing to harvesters for longer than you normally would if you wanted to get out, say, 3 harvesters and then transition into bike buggy. But yeah, it's looking macro-oriented. It is looking like an almost mirror, as you mentioned, with Nod versus Marked of Kane. And the frame rate is good. Solid 30 all around.
That's all that matters, right? It's the frame rate. I'm liking the fact that Masterleaf, you know, we saw some very early aggressive builds from him in the last game, in the last series that we watched from him. Didn't have a tremendous amount of success with it, despite staying alive and forcing an ace match. Going to be going for a much more conventional build this time around. As I say that, he drops an operations center and a hand of Nod, so we're going to see something a little bit wacky.
Ooh, boy, oh boy. So we do have a quick update here. Buka apparently had a power outage, so the Futurama versus Buka series can potentially still happen. Of course, a little bit of a delay there, but a power outage is better because we still get to see games. And it will be a best of 3, so it'll still be a relatively short showing regardless, even if it does go to 3 games. I mean, unless they're all insane, like 45-minute matches. But, yeah, so we will get to see, I think, Futurama versus Buka, which has me very excited because, as I've said several times, I'm excited to see those two guys play. They're a couple of guys who can put up some great games. And, well, let's see if this one turns into great. Cyberstorm swarming into Masterleaf's base here. Bike buggy, you called it, buddy. And now it's going to be bikes versus buggies. Of course, we do have some tip troopers mixed in here. Those upgrades may be costing Masterleaf a couple of harvesters. We'll see if he's able to defend those harves. And for now, it's 2 harvesters down below half health, but no harvesters dead. A third harvester is dropping below half health. Cyberstorm could have killed one of these harvesters if his fire was more focused. There's a couple of more bikes going to be coming in here, and he's getting some trades on the stacked up harvesters, doing bonus damage, but ultimately he's just trading.
Yeah, just not able to solidify any kills on those harvesters.
Every harvester survives.
They're
Every
all
single
alive.
one.
A lot of damage on these harvesters, don't get me wrong, so a follow-up attack could potentially be very deadly, but they're going to get repaired over time just passively from that War Factory placement, but yeah, just not enough eco damage early on. We do see a harvester go down in the south, but that's a pretty small consolation prize.
Now, back at Cyberstorm's home, he does indeed have a delay on his own natural expansion refinery. It looks like he's got it paused, or maybe it's just because he's out of cash, but he cleans up a second harvester. He's actually getting some value from the bikes this time. If he kills harvester number 3 that's half full of Tiberium, that sweetens the deal even more. Masterleaf not controlling his harvesters at all, and instead they fall. 3 of them, a 4th taking some heavy damage. And this is great for Cyberstorm. Almost a cataclysmically bad opening for Cyberstorm, and then he turns it around, and this is okay damage. This is totally fine.
Still not the end of the world for Masterleaf, though. He really didn't lose that many harvesters, and as you'll notice in Cyberstorm's base, he's been doing pretty well at keeping pressure up on Masterleaf, but has not really been ecoing behind this. So we're not really seeing him take advantage of the fact that he's been putting the pressure on. We're also not seeing any harvesters into the middle for Cyberstorm to grab away this blue Tiberium. That would have been, I think, the chef's kiss on the push.
You're capturing it perfectly. My concern for Cyberstorm is the next couple of minutes. He went double War Factory, but that second War Factory didn't get him as much as I think a refinery would have. So he has a stunted economy heading into the mid game. He got 4 refineries, he got 4 harvesters at home, excuse me, and I don't think he ever got the 5th, which means he has been down on harvesters this entire game. Masterleaf, triple refinery in the south. He is going for a big eco boom, and that could mean in 2 minutes he has an overwhelming force that Cyberstorm literally can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and this is a weird situation. I think it's going to force Cyberstorm into a scenario where he almost has to go for 1 clicks just to try to stop the eco advantage, but it's not going to slow Masterleaf down enough. I think Cyberstorm's in some trouble here if he doesn't really do some serious eco damage right now.
EMP's landing, catching a couple of those buggies. Another harvester is going to be going down, but that's a harvester in the main base. That harvester had almost no Tiberium to gather anyways. Down at the natural expansion, that's where all of the harvesters are safe, and that's where the more meaningful harvesters are as the game continues on. The parade push continues. Cyberstorm streaming units across the map, making as much use of that double War Factory, but he's constantly drawing his 0 on his bank account, and the infantry are such an equal match for this buggy.
And we're still not seeing a move here, despite having complete map control on Cyberstorm's part by just tossing this line of units across the map. Still not capitalizing on grabbing the blue Tiberium. He's clearly grabbed some, but not enough for it to really make much of a difference.
Masterleaf diving in on these retreating forces with his own bikes. He's in the middle of the map, and it's mostly just buggies that remain, which, hey, when your opponent is marked of Kane, when they're going heavy infantry, buggies are good. But as the game goes on, I'm not sure how useful those buggies are going to be. Well, never mind. Masterleaf drops a second hand of Nod. He packs up his MCV back at home. Maybe the buggy is the only thing that you need when you're Cyberstorm.
And we see massive buggy out from Cyberstorm. He does have his expansion up and rolling. He's grabbing that economy from his second greenfield, but now we're seeing the push advantage in favor of Masterleaf. You're seeing a lot of purple across this map, and the question is Masterleaf going to commit the same mistakes that we were seeing from Cyberstorm? We need to see some harvesters in the middle of the map grabbing this giant chunk of blue Tiberium. That's an incredible amount of cash that can really jumpstart these guys' economies.
The one thing that Masterleaf doesn't have is Tier 3 and Supercharged Particle Beams. He's going for a pretty big switch up into Enlightened. He had that double barracks back at home, and with this Enlightened Tib Trooper combination with fast legs, that is an extremely powerful army. But without Supercharged Particle Beams, he's going to trade versus these buggies, but not nearly as well as if he had that upgrade. This is a lot of buggies here on the map. EMPs landing, massive EMPs,
wow.
shutting down 10, 11 buggies. Suddenly this
Look
army's
at this
DPS
damage.
comes to 0, and that's the thing where Masterleaf says, I don't need upgrades. His opponent, his units can't move. They can't fight, they can't move, and they're slow from the Tiberium.
And not only that, but Masterleaf bringing his MCV along for the ride, so it looks like he's just going to kind of go for the death march forward. I think he's realizing that Cyberstorm doesn't really have much to follow up behind this. It's mostly just buggy, and pretty clearly his very heavy tier infantry at this point are going to be able to stand toe-to-toe with them, no problem.
Man, if those EMPs hadn't landed, these buggies would have actually been able to clean up a chunk of this army. But now that the re-engage happens, it's like half the number of buggies, but the same number of infantry from Masterleaf. The EMPs land once again. Marked of Kane, infantry superiority. Are you kidding me? Masterleaf
and just the power of the micro. Unbelievable. Just really, really good play here from Masterleaf. And again, this was the inevitable demise if he wasn't able to get that economy stunted here for Masterleaf. And this is just going to be a slow push forward here for Masterleaf at this point.
Cyberstorm makes it through the lower bracket, 1 round in a 2-1, but it looks like he will be falling in a 1-2 to Masterleaf. And Masterleaf, he's getting his shot at redemption to make it back to the grand finals, to make it further in this tournament. The Shredder turret's going offline. Oh.
Not to take everything away from Cyberstorm here, he did just completely clean up every single harvester that Masterleaf has. Masterleaf has absolutely 0 economy behind this push. So if somehow, I'm sorry, there's a couple of harvesters here with blue Tiberium in the middle of the map that are just waiting for a refinery, but he doesn't have any money. So if this push somehow gets stopped, then Masterleaf's in for a world of hurt.
More and more Shredder turrets coming down. Harvesters might have to be used as fodder just to buy more time. EMPs landing, though, and those Shredder turrets can't do anything if they're EMP'd. They're getting shut down. The nice comes out from Cyberstorm. The GG will almost certainly follow next, and that'll be the end of his tournament run. Masterleaf keeps his hope alive. That purple infantry swarm cannot be stopped.
Marked of Kane infantry being the order of the day that's been extremely powerful here for Masterleaf. So I'm curious now if anybody's been paying attention on the other side of the bracket to see what Masterleaf's been up to and see what their solution for that infantry is going to be.
Oh my gosh, what an insane game 3 to jump into. I did not realize that is what we were jumping into. But with that game number 3, I'm glad that we got another ace match, and I'm glad that was the final one. It looks like Futurama and Buka have already started their game, which means once they come out of it, we will jump into their series. It will be a 1-0 for one of the players. I don't think they'll have time to have played 2 games in that time. But, oh no, Futurama is still here. So maybe we get to see Futurama versus Buka, or maybe the Buka's already bowed out. I don't know. But man, what a sick series. And yeah, all of those buggies, if the buggies had actually been able to fire, like in that first engagement, that big buggy swarm, if they had actually been able to fire, they might have had a chance to slow down that army enough and to cut enough of it away that when Masterleaf showed up to the main base of Cyberstorm, he just didn't have the numbers to keep pushing like that. But those EMPs were pretty much perfect. Masterleaf nailed half of that army immediately and removed it from the fight. Cyberstorm retreats, and then, of course, by that point, Masterleaf's army has been diminished almost not at all, and Cyberstorm's army has been cut in half. And he just did not have the time. He did not have the ability to deal with that army.
Yeah, and it really just shows the power of the strategy, right? Like, we're talking about strategy games. I know I keep using the blanket term of strategy, but it really is a matter of having a purpose behind what you're doing and having a follow-up to if this doesn't work, if this doesn't end the game, what's the next move from here? You know, with Masterleaf getting his, making that final push at the end of the game, and then Cyberstorm completely killing all of the harvesters of Masterleaf in the backside. If somehow Cyberstorm had held on, that would have put Masterleaf in a really bad position because he just wasn't paying attention or didn't have a commitment to actually making sure that he was playing defensive as well as aggressive. So it's very interesting choices. It makes every single choice very critical and very impactful on how the game turns out. So this is exciting Command & Conquer.
And it looks like we might have Futurama versus Masterleaf, which was going to be our opening match. Now, of course, with the Ladder Wars, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning. Oh no, Buka is apparently still in it, so it might be Futurama versus Buka. But at the beginning of the day, the first match we were looking at before the bracket got rearranged was going to be Masterleaf versus Futurama. And we're almost getting that rematch here. Now, if we see the rematch, if we see that match actually show up, it will be a best of 3. It won't be a best of 5. So it will be potentially a little bit shorter there. But still, we'll get to see Masterleaf versus Futurama. I actually just casted a Masterleaf versus Futurama game. It was super entertaining. Actually, I think that is the most recent video on my channel. But it was a super entertaining game. And anytime those guys match up, it's pretty much always a good match.
Yeah, and Futurama, I have seen a number of games with him. I think he came onto the scene slightly after I was done casting, but he has put up some really, really good games against really, really top-notch players. So I'm definitely interested in seeing it. But again, I've never heard of Buka. He's clearly able to hang in if he was able to go in up against Eclipse and take it to an ace match and win it. So I would certainly love to see some new faces along with some slightly new faces, and then obviously we have all of the OGs. So I'm curious to see how this next series will play out.
And just a quick bracket recap for those of you who are tuning in a little bit late. Well, I guess maybe cover your eyes if you want to go back and check out those previous matches. We have had a lot of ace matches in this event. Dimitri versus Masterleaf, a 3-2 for Dimitri, and then Bike Rush versus Futurama, a 3-2 for Bike Rush. On the south side, Buka versus Eclipse, a 2-1 for Buka, and then Cyberstorm versus Gaseous, a 2-1 for Cyberstorm. And now, it's going to be Futurama versus Leaf. Unfortunately, Buka's power outage seems to have consumed him. And so we do have a 1-0 for Futurama there. Buka's power is apparently on the fritz, or the storm was bad, who knows? Could have been a bad storm, could have been something else going on, but either way, it looks like it is going to be Futurama versus Masterleaf. We get that match, and it is going to be a best of 3, but this also sort of means that this is the 3rd place match. Because of Dimitri's situation there, whoever wins this goes on to play against Bike Rush. And whoever loses is our 3rd place winner. So, winner? Our 3rd place finisher. Our 3rd place contestant. They will take 3rd place.
Winning 3rd place in a bracket like this, I think, is no small feat. So I think we could call it a 3rd place winner. I'm comfortable calling it that. It's this is a scary cast. If you've ever played Kane's Wrath before, it's a dangerous group. So no, I'm very interested to see Futurama versus Masterleaf. I'm a little bit disappointed to not see Buka, but that's okay. Maybe we'll catch him in another future Ladder Wars. Hopefully, he just continues to powerhouse through. It looks like he did manage to climb himself into that rank 10 spot. So it would be interesting to catch him in another game.
Yeah, and according to Phantom, Buka messaged him and basically said, maybe my power will come back on, but I don't want to delay the tournament anymore, so I'll go ahead and take the L. So in that case, Buka is getting us closer to more matches. There are some concessions made when it's something like your power is out and it might be coming back on in a minute, and I don't know, maybe there was something wrong with his PC as well. Power surges can cause problems with electronics, but regardless, he is going to be bowing out there, and that means that, yes, we will get to see Futurama versus Masterleaf. We didn't get to see Buka today, but as you say, hopefully we'll get to see him in the future. And there is a couple of bounties. I did forget to mention this, partially because one of the bounties is actually placed on Bike Rush. If anyone knocks Bike Rush out of the tournament, they could lose all of their matches after that, but if they knock Bike Rush out, they get $20 regardless. And also, whoever plays Scrin the most gets $10, but you have to play Scrin in more than 5 games. So at this point, Bike Rush owns almost couldn't get that, although he did play Scrin in the previous game, so maybe he could. So it's sort of like you can maybe get it, but if you weren't playing Scrin in the early rounds, you may not be able to get that to hit the 5-game minimum. But we'll see. Those will be handed out after the fact. And Bike Rush owns is in the finals, which means whoever wins, if they beat Bike Rush, then not only do they get the first place prize, but they get the $20 on top of that. So it's an instant bonus for not being Bike Rush.
Sorry, Bike Rush. Not sorry. But I think given that I think anybody would argue that he's probably a favorite in almost any tournament in Kane's Wrath. It'll be interesting to see if anybody's able to dethrone the man himself. But I'm excited. We've got Futurama versus Masterleaf coming up. Masterleaf battling back in a 2-1 series after fighting back 3-2 in the last series prior to that. So he's had certainly a number of games under his belt this morning, 8 games total so far, and so he's certainly warmed up, and he's certainly had an opportunity to kind of test his mettle against some of these different strategies. So I think it's going to give him an opportunity to really get in good form. And have a chance here with Futurama. And Futurama, similarly, it looks like he fought pretty hard against Eclipse. Didn't really have much of an opportunity with Booka, just given the power outage. So we might see a little bit of advantage to Masterleaf, just given the fact that he's been, he's warmed up. His fingers are loose. He's ready to go.
Now, Masterleaf versus Futurama. This is a set that could go either way. Honestly, it depends on the form on the day. I'm very glad to see that Masterleaf, after his 2-3 loss versus Dimitri, did not totally tilt and did not totally slump. He brought it back versus Cyberstorm, and that means when these two guys match, maybe there's a slight edge for Futurama, but honestly, it's a 50-50. And that could mean still a 2-0 or a 2-0 for one of these players, but I pretty much guarantee you that the games will be close. And now that I've said that, hopefully they don't cast or curse me and make me wrong. But yeah, these two guys are very evenly matched. They're very equal in a lot of ways. And Masterleaf, he's been playing that cheeky weirdo stuff, and I hope to see more of it. But as long as the games are good, who cares?
Yeah, and we saw more standard play out of him in that last game, which is kind of what I was hoping for. And again, I don't know how the rest of that series went, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Masterleaf playing slightly more standard with a bit more spice towards the mid game, as opposed to really going super ultra heavy cheese in the early game.
And Masterleaf a little bit confused with the map choice being Decrepit Arena, which is sort of the red zone variant of Tournament Arena. Those lush green football fields that are normally there will be turned to brown rock, and we'll get to see, apparently, Decrepit Arena. Now, it is Futurama's map choice. He is rank 2, so I believe going into it, it is going to be the higher seeds first map choice, and then it's loser picks after that. So, yeah, it's going to be Decrepit Arena as game number 1. And, yeah, that's, we got to see Tournament Tower, we got to see Pipeline Problems, and now we get to see Tournament Arena, basically. Which, again, a little bit weird to see some of these maps coming out in a tournament, but if they're good games, who cares?
I have a fondness for Tournament Arena. It is, I think, by far my favorite map to play as a player. As a terrible player, I'll add that asterisk in front. But it is just such an easy to understand flat map diagonally across. The middle of the map is just straight carnage. It's not a big map, so the games usually are fast and furious, and then they end. It doesn't drag on forever, but I am excited to see it.
It does tend to be a base pushy type map. I think they're just constantly counterpicking each other.
I see that.
In factions. They cannot decide on what their factions want to be. But someone mentioned the viewer count and the like number, and they were like, the viewer count is this, but the like number is only this. Are the rest of these guys masochists? And I think that's the conclusion we can draw. If someone doesn't take an action, that they are that they mean the opposite of that. The other people who are watching the stream are just watching it out of hate. They're like, I hate Spartacus and Sybert so much. I can't stop watching.
So I'll be the one to say what Sybert's trying to say out loud, but cheekily hit that like button.
No. I just thought it was funny that someone pointed that out and then draws the conclusions they must be masochists. And it's like they just hate themselves and they love the pain so much.
Suffering is life.
Suffering is life. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 1, the lower bracket finals of the July Ladder Wars tournament. The first Ladder Wars in quite some time. Playing purple in the north, this is Masterleaf. Meanwhile, in the south of Decrepit Arena, playing the cyan, this is Futurama.
So, GDI, Zocom, we're seeing Zocom in the hands of Masterleaf. I'm going to go ahead and consult the crystal ball and say it is almost assuredly going to be Tiberium field suits early and very heavy infantry from Masterleaf throughout the game, given the fact that he's playing Zocom.
So I guess the dance on the Futurama side will be number 1, how quickly do you rush out AP ammo because you really, really need that? And then what is your balance of riflemen, which are always going to be worse versus Masterleaf's tip field suits, riflemen, APCs, and hammerheads? Because the one thing we didn't see from Cyberstorm in that last game, Venoms. Boy was playing Nod, and he never was able to get out Venoms versus a Tib Trooper Enlightened combo. He was focused on those buggies, he dropped that double war factory, and he was not ready for the air game. But Futurama, he may be a little bit ready for that. He may have been watching those games and have an idea of how Masterleaf has been playing out this tournament. And he should be expecting the infantry plays. He should.
And that's going to be that's going to be the order of the day, is that we've clearly seen Masterleaf transition very well, and I think I've become a broken record using pivot as like my new favorite word for the day. But I'm going to say it again, is that I think honestly it's going to be a matter of how Futurama chooses to pivot against the inevitable moves here by Masterleaf. We're seeing a barracks down. I'm assuming that's going to be, or actually I have no idea.
Is he going armory after this? Leafy boy, what are you planning? There's the armory, and it's on the north side of the base. It's as far away from this foxhole as he can make it. Now, Futurama is a scouter. He's not the best scouter in the game, but he's one of the top scouter. He's always trying to keep eyes on his opponent, and Masterleaf is doing Masterleaf things once again. Also, Futurama will mention he's got a scout in the bottom left. He has taken one of those bunkers, so he's got eyes on Masterleaf's blue field.
Yeah, and we're seeing the MCV kind of for Futurama in between the green and blue fields, so a bit of a gap between his main base and his expansion. Definitely going to give him a lot of access to this heavy blue Tiberium in the corner, but it is going to create a scenario where there's an open space that can cut off reinforcing units.
And that is a triple rocket squad inside of that hardened bunker in the top right-hand corner of the map. Masterleaf goes armory, calls in reinforcements, goes command post, and then goes orcas after that. So Futurama, he may be a good scouter, but he cannot see in the dark. He is not omniscient and all-knowing, so he is going to have to just deal with some insane unit compositions and some potentially insane tech switches over the next minute.
Ooh, I'm loving this from Masterleaf. So I think he may have tricked Futurama a little bit here with that armory early, and then now has pivoted to Zorkas. So we're seeing Zorkas coming out, and we're seeing those Predator tanks again. So going to be a lot of pressure on this economy.
All right, 3 orcas crossing the map. They're not going for the main base. They are headed for this natural blue Tiberium split. So it could be just to snipe Predator tanks. You do have to be careful with Zorkas hitting moving targets. They're going to go for the Harvester. 1 Harvester down. 2nd Harvester is on the blue, and Futurama wants to keep that guy moving. He knows the order of operations. He keeps it moving, and the orcas are going to try and fake out, fly away. They head back, but they miss. Nicely done there by Futurama. Perfect micro from Futurama.
And just showing that Futurama is certainly no slouch. He was able to keep that Harvester, which looked almost doomed, very much alive. Just had to keep moving, pivoting around. Again, I'm going to stick with my word, not going to back off of it. But we're seeing a lot of Predator tanks out here from Futurama in the middle to respond to those Predator tanks that we saw earlier from Masterleaf, and now the question is going to be, what kind of support is he going to have for anti-air against these orcas that are going to come in to look to counteract this Predator tank push?
So tell me, what design for your word of the day calendar did you go with? did you go with just like business, or is it kind of cutesy? Does it have flowers? Is it a Dilbert one or some kind of cartoon? Orcas coming back in across the natural expansion. Action exploding all over the map as Futurama is trying to pressure the main base of Masterleaf and also dodging these Zorka shots. The dude is almost perfect.
Excellent moves here from Futurama. I mean, he's putting the pressure on with these Predator tanks up front. He's taking some bad trades, but he's cutting the numbers down and certainly keeping Masterleaf reined in, but also keeping his harvesters alive. Just very good play.
Until the orcas cross the map back to refuel and nuke 4 Preds in 1.
That's just
Perfect is
unfortunate.
not. Yeah, wow. But AP Ammo finishes up here for Futurama. What a weird game this is turning into, the way the economy has segmented out. Futurama going for the faster expansion, going for the blue Tiberium, but only 1 refinery on the green Tiberium, and now Masterleaf catching up, taking his own blue Tiberium in the corner, getting his own natural expansion up and running. So they're both, again, kind of on equal footing in terms of economy. They've both gotten there in very different ways, but they're both sort of evened out. MCV, second MCV, I should mention, in the middle of the map for Futurama. Sonic Emitter gets nuked instantly by these Zorkas, and Laser Field does deploy on that MCV. Zorka's looking for the Preds. Nice dodge. Perfect once again from Futurama.
We are seeing a bit of mix of infantry and the Predator tanks out here from Masterleaf to put some pressure on this MCV that's moved into the middle of the map here for Futurama. And the infantry does have that Tiberium field suits. No AP ammo yet, but AP ammo not going to be too super effective here for Masterleaf. But I will be curious to see. He's invested very heavily in these Predator tanks. No real upgrades possible for these, whereas Futurama's could potentially look to get railguns at some point if and when he gets to that late game.
Yeah, he's got the tier 3. He's had it for a couple of minutes, and he's got an upgrade researching. It's about 90% complete, so railguns might be added on in the next moment. Orca's coming in another pass. Predators need to get on the move. There's the railguns. They finish up. The Orcas haven't fired a shot, but they also haven't landed a shot. Oh, that's going to be a triple Predator kill. No, they just got 1. They didn't force fire into the middle. There's a little bit of action of Futurama attacking the main base of Masterleaf. He's going for the cross map while the Predators and the and the AP ammo watchtowers fight off Masterleaf's forces. It's going to be pit bulls in the main base of Masterleaf guarding, puppy dog guarding that airfield, but also killing every harvester.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the harvesters for Masterleaf in the bottom left corner are very low on HP. Not sure if that was from harassment from those pit bulls, or perhaps just from those infantry squads garrisoned in those bunkers.
Futurama comes in. He almost kills another harvester, but he doesn't fire that last shot off. And now Futurama going to be losing a lot of pit bulls on exit. There is 1 Firehawk in the sky, keeping an eye on the air. But I think all of the Orcas have either just pivoted around it. Yeah, they're hiding. They're in the south at a combat support airfield. Oh, Firehawk comes in, but he misses the shots. He doesn't get the kill. The repair is too strong.
Zone Raiders out as well with, I think, some anti-air capability here, so might be able to snipe this Firehawk. That's bad news here for Futurama.
Oh, Commando! Commando jump jets to the front line, gets the MCV in the middle of the map, and then dies unceremoniously afterwards.
Getting that MCV, though, a pretty good pickup, but now we have a Marv out for our GDI player, Futurama, and he's got a zone trooper in there, a couple of rifleman squads, maybe. Oh, no, it's a couple zone troopers, couple engineers, so pretty well-balanced Marv. Yep, but we've got some zone raiders out here, as well as some mammoth tanks. A couple of mammoth tanks on Zocom. Interesting.
Mammoth tanks got buffed a bit in the most recent R20 patch.
Gotcha, that would explain it. But we are seeing some Predator tanks here from Futurama pushing away the Predator tanks, the unupgraded Predator tanks here from Masterleaf. It looks like maybe a Miss Micro going to lose one of those, but now up against Zone Raiders, certainly don't want to be fighting that fight.
Oh, a couple of Predator tanks very low on health. They might die, but Zone Raiders are notoriously bad at shooting moving targets. So wow, that low health Predator tank reverse moving was still able to escape those Zone Raiders because they're so bad at shooting moving targets. We haven't seen a lot of one-clicks, but we do have a lot of the tech unlocked. They just haven't gone for the Space Command uplink necessarily. Watchtower's getting reestablished. This is Futurama's original MCV. So he lost his second MCV, he's pulled his original MCV, and that means he is not quite all in, but he's very close to all in on this attack. Orca's getting sniped. Sniper team's also getting sniped by the Zorkas of Masterleaf. This game is messy.
Masterleaf still has some eco to gain here on the left side of the map, but he's certainly going to have to fight for every bit of it, and it looks like that Marv progressing forward with some Juggernauts going to be putting a lot of pressure on this army, so we're going to have to see some kind of move here from Masterleaf to back this off so his harvesters can harvest without any contest.
But also, Masterleaf's main base has started to regrow, so if he's able to delay enough, which the EMP will help with, locks down the Marv, snipes a Juggernaut, Firehawks come in for Futurama, once in going for the snipe, the GG gets called, and Masterleaf is going to call it quits. The front door was breached, and it wasn't enough for Masterleaf.
Yeah, just a very strong showing here from Futurama. He got his eco up and running and just managed to keep it online. Those Zorkas were a nice choice. I think it was something that Futurama didn't see coming, but unfortunately the reason that the Zorkas aren't super powerful is because they just have such a difficult time hitting those moving targets. So against good players like Futurama that are able to micro those units away, you just don't get max value out of them. So a little bit unfortunate that was the case. I was hoping to see a little bit more value out of those Zocom Orcas, but they certainly forced a lot of response from Futurama, but unfortunately not enough to allow Masterleaf to clinch the win.
That is one of those things where if you are a not very good player like me, Zorkas are so much more deadly. But holy cow, Futurama made Zorkas look like a bad investment. Like, they're so good versus static targets and so bad versus static targets. And that's just where being able to control a fight in your opponent's main base and also micro your harvester at your natural expansion, that is where that comes into play. And Futurama, he's going to be feeling good going into game number 2. Of course, as a reminder, this is only a best of 3. This is not a long series, so Masterleaf is already here with his back against the wall. He's staring down match point as they go into game number 2.
And I'm very interested to see what Masterleaf's choice is going to be. We've seen Zocom, we've seen Marked of Kane. I'm curious if he pivots to something like Black Hand or Traveler 59 again. I think Black Hand was the one that was probably most successful for him earlier. So I'm curious if that's going to be his choice this time around. I imagine he'll probably pick a map. Well, actually, I have no idea. With Masterleaf, it's anybody's guess. I'm very curious to see how that ends up working out.
Of course, I want to see him pick some kind of weirdo map, something that we haven't seen. Even Desert Meadow, which is a map that I haven't seen, which I think is relatively new. Oh, wow, Masterleaf says any. He does not care what the map is. He's also actually currently set to Observer, so maybe it's going to be Sparta versus Futurama, and Masterleaf will just accept the outcome of the game. But, maybe we'll see Masterleaf queue up here. And, okay, one of the things that you get as the loser in a series, as someone who has lost a game in a series, I shouldn't call him a loser like that, as someone who has lost a game in a series, is you get to pick the map. And Masterleaf is kind of foregoing that advantage and just saying, you know what, I'm going to play any map that you throw at me. I don't care what it is. I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah, so I'm wondering how he is. That's an interesting faction choice. An Abandoned Subway. I've never seen this map.
Yeah, Abandoned Subway, a relatively new map. Maybe it was there in R19. I can pretty much guarantee it wasn't in R18, but maybe it was, and I just don't remember it. So I think it's either an R19 or an R20 map. Either way, we are going to get to see it here in game number 2 of this series. It's a lower bracket best of 3. Whoever wins this goes on to play Bike Rush. But of course, it is a best of 3. It's not over yet. In the bottom left-hand corner, playing the GDI, hoping to close it out here 2-0. This is Futurama. And meanwhile, a short walk across the southern edge of the map, playing Marked of Kane. Going Secret Shrine, what are you doing, man? All right, playing Marked of Kane, playing purple. This is Masterleaf. He's Shadow Team rushing. What?
I dig it. Is that going to get spotted? Oh man, that was so close. I think it was almost decloaked by the rifleman squad that was running underneath it. That would have been unfortunate. Because I think he's trying to sneak up and kill this engineer before it gets to its tib spike. No, what is he up to with these shadow teams? Is he going to try to take out the power plant? He's going to have to.
Oh, this is 5 shadow teams in total. Now, if Futurama gets a look at the base of Masterleaf, well, okay, power plant's about to go down. Yep, power plant gets eliminated, so now Futurama knows what's up. This is a close by air kind of map, so you do have the ability to pull in shadow teams. And Futurama, he doesn't have that watchtower down yet. He hasn't deployed the watchtower. He does have it queued. So power plant number 2 is going to go down.
Oh, didn't go down. He had to waste more shots on it and forced to deploy his shadow teams to fly away. So not getting super effective moves out of these shadow teams right now. I think this may have been a bit of a blunder here from Masterleaf to try to think that this was going to be enough to put Futurama behind.
I would love to see Masterleaf play this game out in full and win it here, not only because I love to see the ace match, but I would just love to see this game turn around from a bad shadow team opener that did not get the value that Masterleaf wanted into a win for him. If he had been able to get both of those secondary power plants, you know, maybe this could have turned into something, but he just was not able to get those power plants, and, you know, now he's got these shadow teams. He's got a super delay on his economy. He's got some GDI units showing up to his main base, and he's going to struggle to deal with them, but he does have EMP.
It's actually not the end of the world because Masterleaf's actually in a better spot economy-wise right now if he can get harvesters out and defend them. He has some pressure in his base right now. Not a lot, but it's going to be enough to be annoying. He's going to have to keep these harvesters alive. Ooh, Mine Drop comes down too, does a fair bit of damage. The harvester going to come out and probably almost instantly take some damage from those mines. Unfortunate. So he does have to respond to this attack in his base, but it's not a base killing force. It's not going to kill all of his harvesters. And Futurama is still chasing around the shadow teams.
Yeah, all right. Well, Masterleaf calls the GG, and that's the 2-0 for Futurama. That means it is going to be a Futurama versus Bike Rush rematch. They met in the first round of this tournament. It was a 3-2 for Bike Rush, and it is going to be a rematch in the grand finals of the July Ladder Wars. And that means we are going into our final match of the day. The bracket hasn't quite been updated just yet, but you can imagine a 2-0 there for Futurama. Dimitri is out of the event. I think a gremlin snuck into Dimitri's house and unplugged his PC, so Dimitri is not in this event, which means it's going to be Futurama versus Bike Rush, a best of 7, but there's a little note there next to the grand finals. It says winner bracket 1 point advantage. So that means that Bike Rush starts with 1 point. So instead of doing either a full reset where the winner bracket winner doesn't have any advantage, and instead of doing an extended series where you have to win 2 sets versus the winner bracket winner, they went with the shorter route, which is the winner bracket gets a 1 point advantage.
I dig it. I like it. I think it's probably going to keep these series fast and furious, even though they've been going the distance in a lot of cases. Unfortunately, this last one didn't, but Futurama coming out strong. Masterleaf, again, doing a very nice job of putting various strategies on display for us, which I always love. Unfortunately, they didn't necessarily work out today. Some of them did, not all of them. So we're going to see him ending up, I think, in the losers round. Potentially to fight against the loser of Bike Rush versus Futurama, but obviously going into this next series, you know, I think you have to give the edge to Bike Rush, just given his history and given his prowess in the game. But Futurama is not a slouch. He looks real good. He put Masterleaf down in 2 consecutive games, and you know, it has been looking pretty strong.
I'll give you that Futurama is looking good in game 1. Masterleaf kind of put himself down in game number 2. The Shadow Team Rush, it does work on that map, I guess, because it is relatively close spawns by air, but I would have loved to see Masterleaf just play that one out in a normal fashion. I think he would have had a much better shot at taking the game. So, unfortunately, we are going to get a shorter series there, but it is a 2-0 regardless, and that means Futurama gets his rematch versus Bike Rush. And again, these guys have met in tournaments before. In this particular one, Bike Rush has the advantage. In history, Bike Rush has the advantage, but there was once, I think only once, maybe twice, where Futurama was the one to decapitate Bike in an event. And then I think the finals ended up being Futurama versus Drive, which is always great to see, but it was one of those events where it's like, whoa, Bike Rush Owns just got beat, and it was by Futurama, who he normally has a historically winning score verse.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be curious to see how this one plays out. It's going to be, I imagine it's going to be a series that goes quite the distance, if not all 7 games. 6 games, I guess, because Bike Rush starts off with a +1 advantage. So it's definitely Futurama on the back foot from the beginning. He's going to need to really push hard to try to get there.
Yep, and Dimitri takes Futurama takes the bye versus Dimitri, and there we have the bracket updated. Futurama versus Bike Rush for the finals. Sparty, we made it, man. We made it. We only have a maximum of 6 games left. Our significant others won't be too upset at the timetables we gave them. Right now, I am honoring my timetable. We're at 2 hours and 40 minutes of broadcast time, which is that's pretty much perfect.
Such a silly thing to say at this stage, man. We have seen enough tournaments where the finals drag on forever because they're just such intense games that go on for so long because the players are so good at that stage. So I would temper that enthusiasm. This one I think has the potential to go the distance. So I would fully expect we're going to be here for a minute. I think we've got a number of good games ahead of us.
I'm just trying to honor my wife's patience. I'm trying to keep wife Bert, keep me from being a liar in what I told her.
Trust me, I appreciate the suggestion that this is going to move quickly. Again, I think the maps choices that these guys have been picking too have lended themselves to quicker games. We haven't really seen those long drawn out tier 3 games, so I'm curious to see how this one goes.
Now we do have Futurama here. I think Bike Rush Owns took a bit of a break because he because he was waiting a little while. He was had a bit of a delay to his games, so hopefully Bike Rush Owns is back in the saddle and ready to play versus Futurama. But we are here waiting in the lobby, and Futurama does get first map pick because he is rank 2 versus Bike Rush, who is rank 3 of the Ladder Wars. So even though Bike Rush Owns is the winner bracket winner, and he's already defeated, then Futurama actually still gets to choose the map. And it looks like he's chosen Tournament Apocalypse, which is a map that I think I've seen once. We actually casted this map, I'm almost certain, but I'm not totally certain, in a Tib Wars series long, long ago. We saw this map in, I think, that Bike Rush versus Shock Trumpet series, that best of 13 that we casted like a year ago. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, best of 13. That's a statement.
Long one. That was a long one. That series went on, I think, as long as this entire broadcast has. And that was an edited VOD, too, where it's like there's no downtime in between matches. It's just like game, 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 game.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Best of 13. I don't know that there's ever a scenario where that just makes sense. Even in an incredibly high-value tournament, I think there's still some value in the brevity of a shorter event. And forcing people to make more meaningful choices in each game.
But when you are not worried about having to play in the event and you're just worried about watching the event, Best of 13 is amazing. You're just like, yeah,
It's
Best
not so
of
bad.
40. Who cares? I'm not playing. I'm just watching. Easy. But yeah, Best of 13. It's a bit long. I like the Best of 9, Best of 11 range for Kane's Wrath. It kind of has a nice fit. But
Best of
we'll
9's
see.
Best of 9, I think, is the upper limit. I think that's where you really start to see the differentiator. But Best of 11, Best of 13, Best of 41 might be a bit of a stretch. You get there eventually.
A buddy of mine in StarCraft, some of you may know, but many of you may not know. Fear Dragon 64 is his online name. He ran a Best of 69 for the meme.
Yikes.
It was a long set of games. I don't actually remember if they played it in one sitting or if they broke it up into 2 days. But it did end up going, I think, into like the upper 50s in terms of total games. Because a Best of 69, you need like, 35 wins? So in theory, it could be just 35 games. But I think it ended up going up to like 50-something or maybe even low 60s in terms of the games.
Oh, man.
Brutal. So, yeah, it's like, that's just a lot of matches.
At some point, fatigue gets factored in, and you just start tossing games just because you're just like, you know what? Never mind. I don't even want to play this map.
But actually, I don't know what they did for the maps. But also, if it's spread out over like 2 or 3 days, and like you're both in it for the joke, and like everyone's on the same page, and no one's taking it like super seriously, then then it could be a good time because you're just playing games with your mates, and you're getting paid a little bit for it as well, and it's all for the joke. So, but yeah, I imagine like game 37, you're like, this wasn't a good idea. Why did I agree to this?
Yep, and I guess just for the viewers that are sitting around realizing not realizing what it is that we're doing right now, we're obviously just vamping. Bike Rush, it looks like he needs a couple
time
to get started here, and I'm curious, is this going to be the first map? This Voice of Heaven?
It is Futurama's choice, and he went through like 10 different maps, and then he stopped on this one. So it is not a guarantee that Voice of Heaven is the map. Again, one of these maps that I am unfamiliar with. Lots of them here in R20. But it looks like it could be interesting. Who knows?
Yeah, I've never seen this map. So I'm excited to see some strong players on some unconventional maps.
In theory. And then right before the game starts, he switches over to Tournament Rift. Like, there we go again.
I don't mind the classics either.
I love with the sheer number of maps, and see, you may not realize this, but in more casual non-tournament play, well, actually in tournament play as well, Tournament Odyssey and Tournament Highlands became Tournament Rift. So we saw those 2 maps constantly in events and in practice games and random matches on the server. Tournament Odyssey and Tournament Highlands were just so incredibly popular that we did not see Tournament Rift for a long time. So now Tournament Rift feels kind of novel to me. I'm like, Tournament Decision, Tournament Odyssey, Tournament Highlands, even Tournament Dust Bowl to some extent. All super common. And in the last couple of years, they've been played much more. From my perspective, they've been played much more than Tournament Rift. But yeah, Tournament Rift, it's still classic for events.
Yeah. I love the fact that these maps exist, and the fact that I'm not sure who's producing all of the maps now. Obviously, it was Predator in the past, but he's been long gone, and then we had Cypher Bullet for a while as well, and I think he's since moved on, and so I'm not sure who's really working on these maps nowadays, but they're certainly impressive.
Unless we load into Voice of Heaven and it's just like a garbage map. It just has terrible design. I do like the kind of squareness of it. A lot of the maps in the pool are more roundy shapes, but like the tib fields all in this, I mean, I'm sure they still grow in a round shape, but the tib fields on this map in terms of design are all very square. And it's like, oh, that's kind of neat. It's kind of very, very square, whereas a lot of shapes in Kane's Wrath are more, they have more angles. They're either like, octagons or hexagons, or they're just circles. And then you have maps like Tournament Odyssey and Tournament Highlands that just have like a lot of open space. Very few buildings, not a lot of terrain breakup. And I mean, Tournament Galaxy is the ultimate version of that in terms of no terrain breakup. But it looks like this map has a decent amount of terrain breakup, a decent amount of buildings and ramps and structures and stuff. So hopefully it'll be a little bit of a interesting map in terms of just pure design. You know, could have a cool tile set and aesthetic. And everyone is readied up, but no one is going because Bike Rush said, hey, I need 2 minutes. And then about 2 minutes later, everyone readies up, and Futurama says, hey, I need 2 minutes. So we're here once again.
In 2 minutes, of course, it's slang for 20 minutes.
I didn't want to say that Bike Rush took longer than 2 minutes, but I think it was.
Well, it's funny. I think I even texted you this morning. I was like, hey, running late. I'm going to be like 5 minutes. And I think I was like 10 minutes. Yeah, just a bad habit. Trying to get better at managing that time.
Yeah. Accurate time predictions are something to be appreciated, but these guys are the finalists. We've got a best of 7 with them, so Bike Rush Jones is like, I'm watching StarCraft 2 anyways, so he's got his own thing going on. Although I don't know what StarCraft event is going on right now, but apparently, you know, we're competing with StarCraft, so...
He's just running StarCraft in the background and is actually just observing just a random game.
He's just like playing
not even a tournament.
Although there are in like, you know, League of Legends and Dota and some of those games with longer queue times, I know there were a lot of players who would play Hearthstone matches in between games of League of Legends. So they were really playing 2 games at once, but they would just you know, like drop out of the Hearthstone match if they needed to. But like the queue time and the thing where you select characters at the beginning, draft.
Yes.
The queue time and the draft are so long that like you have time to, you know, do anything else. Bike Rush is over here playing StarCraft ladder in between rounds of a tournament. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are loading into Game 1 of the finals best of 7 here in the July Ladder Wars. And oh boy, this map is quite curious indeed. Welcome to the Voice of Heaven. Here in Kane's Wrath, spawning in the south, playing as Nod. This is Futurama. Meanwhile, in the north, kicking it as the Red and a GDI faction. Give it up for Bike Rush Owns.
And I have to say, I need to put on my sunglasses when I go onto the far right side of this map because that's a lot of green tib.
That is so much green Tiberium, and I love that not only are the spaces where the tib fields grow square, the tib fields themselves are actually square, which feels absolutely silly, and this is a one-field map. Each player gets one Tiberium field, and then they have to fight over one giant central green Tiberium field, and that is truly a beautiful glow. We got this beautiful Ferris wheel as well on one edge, and then a truly beautiful glow here in game number 1.
Yeah, this is a really interesting map because it's very clearly meant to keep you on the far right side of the map as the game progresses. However, there's plenty of incentive to be on the far left side in the fact that there's this blue Tiberium field that will grow over time. So we're certainly going to see some movement around that side of the map as things go on, but I think we're going to be focused pretty heavily on this far right side. I would have loved to see in this map design these tib spikes moved off to the left.
Is there just one tib spike per player? Okay, no, there is actually 2 tib spikes per player. And yeah, you're right. They are both very heavily weighted towards the right side. One sort of in the middle of the right, and then one there in the far right corner. So it is 2 tib spikes per player, which is a bit more common on these community-made maps. but it's actually a pretty short walk from the main to this big shared field. There is not a very long drive from where you spawn to where the game will probably end.
I really need to see a Marv just drive through the middle of this field. I have to see it this game. So, Bike Rush, there's your to-do list, my guy. Let's get on it. Get that Marv out and start munching away. I'd love to see it.
No one is playing Scrin, so we don't have any kind of like, Tib accelerator in the middle of that giant shared field. But we do have the potential for a Marv. By the way, it is Black Hand versus GDI, a classic matchup here, and we do have the Secret Shrine already present for Futurama. He's most likely getting that Black Disciple upgrade. Pitbull in the base of Futurama. It will spot the Flame Tank heading out, so Bike knows that this Flame Tank is on the way, and that means it might actually be Purifying Flame instead. Nope, he got Black Disciples. All right. We can wish and we can dream that it would be Purifying Flame, but it's not. We love to see Purifying Flame when it does happen.
Yeah, it would have been a bold choice, especially against somebody like Bike Rush, because he would have known how much was invested in that upgrade, and then you just keep those Flame Tanks in control, and then the game's just in your hands. But infantry going to be tough to deal with on this map, just given the Tiberium in the middle. Really going to be seeing a lot of APCs. I think we're probably going to see some hammerheads here pretty quick as well.
I love the radar jamming missile fired off there by Futurama. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. There were 3 Predator tanks ready and waiting for that Flame Tank, but there's a second Flame Tank trying to make its way up the right side, trying to sneak its way through that Tib field. He's going to be going for that refinery. He's going to be trying to cut off Bike Rushones on the front line here. At the same time, Bike Rushones going to be losing a Harvester and Beam Cannons. I love the addition of Beam Cannons. Oh, you're right. He gets that refinery. He's going to be forcing Bike Rush back, and this is just such an aggressive move by Futurama.
I love the beam cannons. These are probably the most underused weapon in the Black Hand arsenal, and they are deadly when you have that infantry force to soak all the damage up front. They just sit there and pick away at all these important structures and items, but Bike Rush has incredible skill with blocking these buildings. So we're going to see a lot of silos. We're going to see a lot of power plants.
Oh my gosh. He's just packing up.
Shoved away.
That MCV is taking so much damage. It's down to half health, but it will not be finished off. Beam Cannon's going to be popping these Pred tanks one by one. The rockets are still here as well. AP ammo finished up for that watchtower, but this base is derelict. This base is empty, and Bike Rush Owns is returning back home. He went double airfield, and he's still got half of a Tiberium field, and that's a juicy, square, thick Tiberium field that he is starting on, so he's still got a decent amount of cash back home, ready to go.
But no eco going for Futurama right now because he's continuing to press this attack forward. So Bike Rush, very smart. He goes over and steals this blue Tiberium on the far left. He's got a full load of blue Tiberium coming back, but if he can get that in, that's going to be a huge boost to his economy to be able to hold the line here, but he needs to be careful with that MCV.
And Bike Rushone's always a believer in a cross map, always a believer in a counter play. He goes for the counter attack, but it doesn't matter. The GG gets called. And boys and girls, that is a win for Futurama, but that is a 1-1 map score because Bike Rushone's, as the winner's bracket winner, starts with a 1-point advantage, and Futurama has now wiped that away. We have got a series on our hand. Futurama prepared something special on the map, Voice of Heaven, and in 6 minutes, he gets the kill on Bike Rush Owns.
Cool way to even up the series, too, especially starting off down a game. So I'm curious what Bike Rush's map choice is going to be, as well as faction choice, in order to respond to this. It looks like he's given up the attempt at trying to steal that Scrin bounty. So it seems like maybe he's going to focus now on trying the tried and true of probably going some kind of nod or even Black Hand, I would suspect, as we go forward.
Ooh, and we have seen this map get loaded by a number of players a number of times in this tournament, but no one has actually chosen it. No one has actually played on it. The map is Toxicity, or Toxicity, as it probably is. But I like the idea that it's a toxic city, and they're just double using the C there.
I'm going with Toxicity because it's actually super on brand for Bike Rush. So actually, if that's his intention, like this is a tongue-in-cheek thing, I love it.
He is going for toxicity, and we are not wasting any time between the games here as we spawn into game number 2. Once again, the score is 1-1 between these players. Playing as the Scrin, playing Cyan, this is Futurama. He is in the west. Meanwhile, in the east, the beast that is there to be slain, playing Nod, playing Red, it is Bike Rush Owns.
And classic Nod v Scrin. Again, another very vertical moving map. We're going to see, obviously, horizontal engagements here between these two players, but really the expansions are almost perfectly vertical at this point. I think we're probably going to see slightly less contention around the blue field, just because I think that's where a lot of the engagements are going to be occurring anyways, so nobody's going to really want to send their harvesters in there to just die. And but we're seeing Scrin out of Futurama this time, so I'm curious what he has up his sleeve.
Yeah, and also with the layout of this map, there are several pockets. This map is not totally open, and you don't have as many bike buggy paths where you can just escape anywhere. There are several routes that are cut off, but also the mountains on the side in the middle, they cut the map off completely. That's a dead zone, so that's a good place for aircraft to escape any kind of anti-air that's chasing them. And then in the south, there are destructible bridges in between the bases, which if you break that bridge, it kind of makes your third base a little bit of a pocket third. But there is a lot of space in between each of the bases, and maybe Futurama has something secret planned for this map. It was Bike Rush's map choice, but we saw something very specific from Futurama there in game number 1 on the map, Voice of Heaven. So maybe he's got another trick up his sleeve, and that's why he chose Scrin.
Yeah, I'm going to make a little bit of a prediction here. I think we're going to see a bit more aggression in the early game out of Bike Rush. I think we're definitely going to see some early bike buggy out of him just to put some pressure on Futurama and make sure that that Scrin doesn't get out of control too quickly. But I do wonder if this game is going to go the distance and get down to that third field. I think that third field's a pretty long expansion away, and these two fields are probably going to produce quite a bit of money, and then they're going to be able to fight in the middle over this blue field. So I lied. We're seeing a harvester straight away from Futurama right in the middle of the map, grabbing this blue Tiberium. Doesn't look like it's going to be contested by Bike Rush either, so really nice play here from Futurama.
Now, Dune Tiger, who is here in the chat, hanging out, watching the games, he has sort of a metric which says whoever grabs the blue Tiberium first, when it's this early on, you know, we're talking like, I don't know, sub 3-minute blue Tiberium grab, they end up losing the game. And grabbing the blue Tiberium that early isn't necessarily efficient when you've got so much green Tiberium that it's just right there and ready to be harvested. But of course, it does deny it from your opponent. And even if it's not perfectly efficient, it's not like it's some, you know, terribly inefficient thing. But Dune Tiger kind of has like it's not a hard and fast rule, but he has sort of a rule for himself, which is like, don't grab the blue Tiberium right away. And we casted a series where basically most of the games where someone grabbed the blue Tiberium right away, they ended up losing. It was like a bad omen in that series.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'm curious if the trend will remain the same. My instinct is that if anybody's going to grab blue Tiberium early and be able to make it worthwhile, it's the Scrin factions, because they actually get max value. They're not like, they don't reach a resource cap, so they can certainly pump through that cash very quickly. And especially since they're looking to eco very heavily early, so that way they can get into the mid to late game and really get into their higher tier units. I'm very curious to see. We haven't seen a lot of aggression from either side, but now we're seeing some Scorpion tanks coming out from Bike Rush on the right that are going to get met by some disintegrators.
Very mild macro openers from both players. Now on the back end, as we progress up that tech tree, you have to keep in mind Futurama is going to have phase and he's going to have stasis to play around with. So anytime you see a big army or see a big engagement, as we go later in the game, Futurama is going to have more tools in his back pocket to deal with that. So when you see that big 7-8K bank from Futurama, some of that is going to be going towards these one-clicks, which might just save him.
Yeah, and I would love to see a Hexapod here too. I think a Hexapod would be very, very powerful on a map like this, to be able to put some pressure but also have the flexibility to repair and gain some value while you're putting pressure on.
Force fields come up here from Futurama. He got that nerve center. He got that upgrade relatively early, but he's also upgrading his tier 3. Could be shard launchers or it could be big boy force fields there at his tier 3. So he's got his tripods marching out onto the map. He's got his stasis chamber as well, so he's pretty well ready for a lot of these late game one clicks that can just sort of silence the army of Bike Rush. We don't see it often, but we have an emissary from Bikey Boy. He has gone for an outpost to that third field. It's so far away that he didn't want to pack up his MCV and walk down there. He sent an actual expansion.
So this is interesting. I obviously spoke out of turn. They're clearly expanding vertically down to those third fields. Bike Rush getting that early expansion is going to give him an opportunity to get that economy established early and potentially look to put some pressure on that expansion from Futurama. So super heavy macro. Both players at tier 3. It looks like Bike Rush has got full upgrades on his Scorpion tanks, Dozer Blades, and laser capacitors. Those are going to be pretty dangerous. However, we're going to start seeing tripod spam coming out from Futurama, and we're also starting to see that air power come online in the form of those Devastator warships.
Bike Rush Owens goes for the scout down in the south. He realizes that Futurama hasn't yet taken that third. And now we've got the mass laser capacitors in the middle, in the south. They're going to be going for the bridge. They're going to be going for that secret crossing. They're going to be hoping to catch this expansion right as it deploys. But the power of Skrin means that Futurama has stayed equal in terms of total resources gathered, despite the fact that Bike Rush Owens has harvested away a big chunk of that third field. Redeemer Engineering Facility there in the south. Masterleaf is not in this game, but Bike Rush Owens pokes in with his buggies and does a little tickle in the middle of the map to Futurama, and then he backs on off.
This is like a casual handshake agreement, like 10 minutes, no rush, just build units, just tech up to max value and get your economy established on all three fields. Like, let's eat up all of the green Tiberium on the entire field, on all fields, and then fight.
Yeah, we are approaching 8 minutes in game, and yet there has not been a big fight yet. Looks like that's about to change. We got avatars in the south, but we got laser scorps in the north. A couple of tripods are here. A couple of more tripods are moving into position to deal with this Bike Rush. Kid dips his toe in the water and says, no, I'm not attacking here. I don't know what you're saying.
We don't see EMP coils on these Raider buggies yet. So I'm curious if that's something that Bike Rush is pursuing at this point. He must know that there's going to be a hexapod on the way, but he doesn't seem to be researching it, doesn't seem to be overly concerned.
Is there a hexapod on the way? I'm not seeing the warp chasm.
Nope. I guess I don't see it either, so maybe that's why he's not bothering with it. There's just no particular value because it's not going to be super useful against these force fields.
Futurama needs to delay this attack, but he also needs to not let these tripods get broken up. Futurama's army has been spread out all over the map, and now he's got a random tripod that is charging forward and is going to get jumped on by these laser scorps. Bye-bye, tripod, as that guy disappears. Scouting Buzzer gets annihilated by the Venoms. Bike Rush Owens said, I'll take one of everything on the menu, please, and 2 or 3 of those avatars. Stasis comes in. There's the big lockdown from Futurama. He's trying to delay this Redeemer. Mine drop coming in. Vertigo bombers were also circling overhead, and it's going to be up to these laser Venoms to snipe as many of these tripods as they can. The Scorps and the tripod and the avatars are on their own versus these tripods. Vertigo's coming for a big sweep, and the power is back online. This Redeemer, the Rage Gen fires off as it's avatars versus tripods, lasers versus lasers, and Futurama's army is still trickling in. He's trying to bring his full strength, but he just didn't have it. The stasis was nice, but those avatars are standing strong against the Skrin army.
And those tripods are powerful. They put down that army, but they got similarly dropped like nothing else. And yeah, Futurama is going to toss in the towel there. That was just a very decisive fight going over in favor of Bike Rush.
30 seconds. That's the difference between Futurama's army being there, being ready, and that stasis being a prime killer of Bike Rush's army. And that stasis, 30 seconds is the difference between that situation and that stasis being a pure delay tactic where almost none of the army died while that stasis was active, and Futurama was still gathering his strength, gathering his forces, and he was not able to put down the first half of the army fast enough. Then that stasis evaporates, and look at that, Bike Rush is at full power, and he just stomps over Futurama. You take the blue tib early, you lose the game, and that is the end of the analysis. There is nothing you could possibly say beyond that.
I am going to add a little bit more.
How dare you?
I will say, I was a little bit skeptical of the mass Scorpion tanks. It felt like a slight overcommitment, but then I started thinking about it, and really having the ability to move around the map very quickly with that much power is what gave him the advantage. Is, you know, having that threat of being on either side of the map at any point in time, and the tripods not being fast enough to respond to it, despite being more powerful, was the advantage that ultimately Bike Rush ended up with, and he played it well. He didn't overcommit in scenarios where the tripods were there. He would bait them into position, then he would move on, and then finally found that engagement where he was able to catch a good chunk of the forces out of position.
Nah, I think it had to do with that blue Tiberium and nothing else. Nothing about the the unit choice of the map positioning. And yeah, and of course, when you're playing Nod, you get that big Scorpion army early. You can defend against all of those early game screen units. And then you get the laser capacitors, and Scorpions are pretty good at killing tripods. They're pretty good at killing everything on the ground that the screen player has. We didn't see a lot of Devastator warships, and of course, planetary assault carriers were sort of out of question for that point in the game. But these boys are moving fast. They do not want to delay, and neither do we, as we spawn into some map that I already forgot the name of. It's not Decrepit Arena, but that's almost what I called it. For Futurama is the map chooser in the top right-hand corner, playing a Scrin faction. As the blue, it's Futurama. And of course, now up 2-1 in this series. Playing the red, playing Black Hand. It's a classic boy. This is Bike Rush Owns.
And I had leaned on you to know the maps here in this case, because I too was not paying attention and was too busy talking. Not something I've ever been accused of before. But yeah, I'm not sure what this map is. It's very unusual.
Tournament Destruction. That's what I'm going to call it. It has a tournament name and a D.
I like it.
Something like that. Anyways.
But
double tip spike
control
and
centers.
Yeah, and a very, very short walk to your natural expansion. I mean, check out the distance between the MCV and the natural. You can almost build your second base refineries from your starting position.
Yep, depending on how you choose to base creep it, but you obviously do have to put some valuable structures in harm's way if you do that. So I imagine they will still do the traditional pack up the MCV and move over there type deal. But lots of eco. Again, we're seeing that double tib spike, very defensible tib spikes early on. So it's, again, I think this is going to lend itself to a macro heavy game just based on the fact that they're clearly going to have the access to a lot of cash. Haven't really seen any of these neutral structures really come into play in these last few games. Mutant hovels, EMP centers. We haven't seen that really play any factor in any of these games. I think we saw one EMP control center captured earlier in the tournament. I think it was actually our first series, but I don't know that it was actually ever used. But anyways,
versus Masterleaf, and he used it and then lost the game.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a good omen.
Oh wait, and that also confirms that your early blue tib. I'm sorry, I'm just realizing that that's what you were saying before. The early blue tib, it was the death of Futurama last game, so hopefully it doesn't make the same mistake this time.
Yeah, no, that was the only thing that it had to do with. No, but just to reiterate, it was, I think, 7 steps for the Nod MCV from where Bike Rush started to where he planted it for this natural expansion. Literally 7 steps. Very, very close on the natural expansions. Plus the double tip spike, you got a really, really solid base for the mid-game on this map. War Factory coming in here for Bike Rush. 4 Seekers committed into this attack. They're not going to get a Harvester, or if they do, it'll be a big, big blunder by Mr. Bike Rush. He sends that Harvester back forward, but it's getting constant repairs, and he is going to have to loop it back around that refinery as his Scorpion tanks put a little bit more pressure on these Seekers and push them out of their repair drone zone so that they are no longer getting those repairs while they're firing.
Yep, and so we're seeing potentially just, again, a macro-heavy game here from both players. We have the Tier 2 down for our screen player in the north, Futurama, and more than likely just going straight up to Tier 3. Would love to see some Mechapedes this game. No, it's going to be a second Warp Sphere for him. Ooh. And then Bike Rush, Tier 2 for him as well. Beam Cannons.
The shoe is on the other foot. Futurama in that game number 1 going for a beam cannon push. And I love this from Futurama here in game number 3, but where he goes for the lightning spike at the natural, which gives him that perfect vision of exactly what Bike Rush is doing. It's that confirmed scout. It does a little bit of poke damage to those harvesters, but ultimately you'd never expect a lightning spike to properly get a kill. You get the vision, you get the eyes on your opponent, but you don't get the eyes on this flame tank that's on the right side. That is up for your buzzers to scout, which they hopefully did see. They did, and the dev tanks are on the way to deal with it. So flame tanks not having a good run in this tournament.
But flame tanks forcing the response, right? So the more that the flame tanks are able to pull the devourer tanks out of position, the more that these beam cannons are going to be effective. The scorpion tanks will be able to put pressure on whatever's there to try to hold them off. And I suspect that it's probably not going to be the end of Futurama here. I think he's going to be able to mount a pretty significant defense against this, but he doesn't have a lot to speak of right now. We do see a Reckoner in the middle of the map with a couple of militant rocket squads inside of it, going to be very dangerous in the middle of the map. That's probably going to be a pathway of aggression for both players, so very nice spot for that Reckoner.
Yeah, I love that double rocket squad in the Reckoner deployed on the blue Tiberium. It's like, hey, if you want this blue Tiberium, you're going to have to fight me for it. And it's going to take you a little moment to break down this Reckoner. Now, at the same time, these dev tanks could pop off some shots. No, they don't lock onto the Harvester. So for now, the Harvester escapes. They do lock onto that Reckoner, and that is exactly what that Reckoner was supposed to do. It wasn't supposed to win the game. It delayed Futurama, and that is exactly what Bike Rush wanted. He's got double War Factory. He was a little bit slow on his second refinery at his natural, but he has decided, I'm going to cross-map, and now his stasis. Oh, the stasis locks down the MCV, locks down that War Factory, and these dev tanks are ready to tumble. So Bike Rush needs that flame tank in order to do big damage. He needs his beam cannons in the natural to do big damage because he is going to be taking some damage back at home. Futurama and Bike Rush, they might be doing a little bit of a do-si-do here as they're going to be just trading positions, trading massive amounts of infrastructure as the force fields come in, and Bike Rush is chasing harvesters with a flame tank back home. The War Factory gets sold off, the tech gets nuked, and both bases are beset with damage and having problems. Futurama's MCV is really far forward, and he has to do something about all of these Scorpion tanks, but this map is pure chaos.
Oh, this is not good for Futurama. I think this game is over. 2 flame tanks have completely cleaned up the backside of this map. I was initially thinking that the beam cannons were going to do some damage, but man, these flame tanks, one of them, double veteran right now, goes heroic. Gonna be almost impossible to stop at this point. GG called from Futurama. Yeah, it's just, that's how it goes, man.
Yeah, I thought he was going to do the old switcheroo where Bike Rush killed his base, but Futurama killed Bike Rush's base. But man, those Scorpion tanks could not be overcome. Futurama completely falls flat on his face. But if those flame tanks had not backstabbed him, he would have been in so much of a better position to keep up that pressure. His MCV was there. He had a good economy behind it. And then suddenly everything got torched. His tech got nuked, and he was just reset to 0.
Yeah, just a strange game, I will say. Bike Rush clearly had a strategy, and it paid off. Futurama, I think, his Devourer tanks were a good idea, but they were just overwhelmed by the mass push from Bike Rush.
And this is a best-of-7 series, but we are now on match point for Bike Rush. It is 3-1. The map score does have a point for Futurama, but it is not enough. He needs consecutive wins from this point forward. And those last couple of games did not look close. Futurama had some cute moves, and he had an okay setup, but ultimately Bike Rush was just better. And it's one of those things where Futurama on that last game, if he had nuked both of those flame tanks, if he had been able to kill those completely, different game. But he didn't. Bike Rush crushed him, and that is the end of that game.
Yeah, and it's crazy to see after this game 2 where Futurama really actually did put up a nice fight against Bike Rush to claw back to 1-1 from being down just based on the losers bracket. But yeah, the last 2 games have been very decisively Bike Rush favored, and so we're going to have to see something significant out of Futurama this time around. So map choice I think is going to be very particular, and then his faction choice as well is going to be very important. So curious to see where he ends up. But with that said, I need to take a quick break. I need to run and just check on the family, make sure everything's good, and I'll be right back.
For those of you keeping score, it was Desert Field, the name of the last map. So I was wrong. It wasn't Tournament something. It was Desert Field. And this might be the last map of the tournament if Bike Rush takes a 4-1 here. Now, of course, Bike Rush Owns did start with a 1-point advantage. For those of you just joining us, if you want to check out the VOD, cover your eyes because I'm about to show the bracket, and we'll kind of talk through our day and how we ended up here. But we started out the game with some fantastic series. Even if you know the result, check out Masterleaf versus Dimitri. It was a great series. Bike Rush versus Futurama, Zads covered, XADS. He was streaming them, I assume, over on his Twitch. I'm sure you can find those. And those were both 3-2s. That led us into the upper bracket finals, which Dimitri DQ'd out of, and Bike Rush Owns advanced over him with basically only one game, which was covered on this stream, but very briefly. Then Buka beat Eclipse 2-1, but Buka had a power outage, so Futurama got a bye over Buka. Cyberstorm beat Gaseous 2-1, and then Masterleaf beat Cyberstorm 2-1. And that third game, Masterleaf versus Cyberstorm, it was super entertaining. It was not necessarily a close one, but it was a super entertaining game to check out. Futurama versus Masterleaf, fun games to see, but not a close series as Futurama closes it out 2-0 against Masterleaf. And then again, Futurama gets the bye. So Masterleaf takes third place. Bike Rush and Futurama are going to be fighting it out for first and second. But Bike Rush Owns is in a very commanding position. He is now with a 3-1 score. The 1 point from the winner's bracket advantage, and then 2 points from the games that he just won. And yeah, a bit unfortunate that Futurama is already up against match point. But hopefully it will be a bit of a switch up here, and we'll get to see another ace match. Otherwise, this tournament might be wrapping up relatively soon. And of course, a big thanks to Phantom and to Zads for letting me know about the Ladder Wars. Always glad to see those events come into play here. Glad to see some Ladder Wars action happening once again. Not sure how you guys are doing on your bracket predictions, if you were able to line up with the wins and the losses. I'm sure no one really got the map scores, but I'm sure some people were able to predict the wins and the losses of the different players. But this is how it has all turned out. It's Futurama versus Bike Rush in a rematch from the very first game of the day, which again was on Zad's stream, not on this stream. And yeah, we get to see how these guys turn it out in the last game of the day. They were the first games, and now the last games. We're coming full circle here in the Ladder Wars for July.
All right, I apologize for holding everything up here. In a weird twist of fate, we have a power washing of our home happening right now, so just wanted to make sure everything was squared away.
Classic Saturday power washing.
This is the first time we're getting it done, so I think it'll actually make the house look real nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Way overdue.
As a younger person, I did some power washing. It was actually a fence, not a house. But I did some power washing, earned some summer money and all that.
Oh, as like a job. Nice.
Yeah. Like, just earning some cash on the side.
Doesn't seem like a terrible gig.
No, I mean, it's pretty monotonous. But, it's not bad at all.
As most jobs are, right?
I didn't do it professionally. I just did it a little. But yeah, lots of jobs are like that. Monotonous, simple tasks that you just sort of repeat over and over. But it is very satisfying.
AI comes and steals all of our jobs.
I mean, they can have the pressure washing jobs.
Don't tell that to the pressure washers.
Yeah, I guess there probably are a lot of people who have pressure washing is a big part of their business.
Yeah, I'm not sure what this whole setup is, but anyways, it's certainly an experience.
Desert Meadow is looking like the map. I guess Futurama could change it at the last second, but it is indeed Desert Meadow, the map choice. Another one of these ones that we haven't quite seen. I hope you're ready for more brown tile sets, because it looks like this map is very brown, but it's also quite a close spawn by air, and we will get into that in just a moment. We have a little bit of a fun matchup here as we spawn into desert, whatever, for game number 4 of this tournament. On the right side, with a 3-1 map score, this is Bike Rush Owns. He's playing red, and he is playing Steel Talons, which is the fun twist that we have. Meanwhile, playing Cyan, playing Scrin, this is Futurama. It is his map choice, and we can hope that he has something up his sleeve, because Scrin versus Steel Talons is not a matchup we see very often.
Now, I have to say, and I'm focusing on something that doesn't matter, but I'm going to say it anyways, Bike Rush has a tree in the middle of his construction yard.
Ooh, we got to keep an eye on that. That is a green construction yard if I've ever seen one.
It very well might be the only greenery on this entire map.
Other than the Tiberium, yeah, that one that's tree. Fair. There's like 3 trees on the map that actually have leaves that aren't just destroyed brown. But at any rate, a fun feature of this map, there are 4 mutant hovels on this map. Wow. 4! It's a 2v2 map, or it's a 1v1 map, and it has like as many mutant hovels as most community maps have tib spikes.
I do like the fact that the tib spikes are way more spread out. I think it gives an opportunity for someone to actually harass that economy. Not a lot of opportunity to really defend it. I don't know that you would ever really expend a lot of effort in trying to defend it, but very strange map. Very, very close spawns. Not
close
sure what the
expansions
are going to look like.
But because of the terrain, you've got kind of this weird asymmetry where the player on the left, their southern entrance to their base is quite narrow, but the northern one is wider, and then it's the reverse for the player on the right side of the map. And then also, because you're quite close by ground, you can expand either north-south or backwards into this corner pocket expansion. Bike Rush Owns has gone for the pocket, and Futurama has gone for the southern expansion, which is a little bit more exposed and a little bit more open. You have more maneuverability there. If you're getting attacked by bikes and buggies, they can swing around sort of all edges of that base. And mine drop on the ramp. Gunwalker takes a lot of damage there. Futurama just clears up a big chunk of those mines, sacrificing that Gunwalker in the interim. And Bike Rush Owns, he sends his Harvester to the middle of the map, but Futurama had the exact same idea, and his Harvester was only moments behind.
Yeah, and we see a Titan out from Bike Rush as well, and so that's going to put some pressure on any Harvesters or anything in the middle of the map here. So actually, Steel Talons, I kind of like this choice on this map because very aggressive very early, I think, with these early Titans and Gunwalkers. Or I'm sorry, not Gunwalkers. They might as well be called Gunwalkers, but Wolverines. Going to be putting a lot of pressure on this base.
First Harvester gets spawned in and immediately has to run for the hills. He's hoping this Devastator, this Dev Tank, will be able to keep him safe. devour up those Steel Talons opponents. MRT cleaning up those descents one by one. The descents spawn in. They immediately get shot up by the riflemen inside of that MRT. But it's going to be the retreat sounded by Bike Rushones. He says, let's get out of here. It's not worth fighting all this scrin mess.
Ooh, probably going to lose that Titan, though. I just don't see how he gets away from that Devourer tank.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That dev tank needs to pull back, though. It's low on health, and he doesn't want to just give away a dev tank to these Titans. Oh, a little bit too late.
There it goes.
Yeah. He could have had a clean trade there. A dev tank for a Titan. Or a Titan and no dev tank loss, but takes the L there on the dev tank. Orca crosses the map. It's going to be triple Orca from Bike Rush. Gets a little bit of the stack on those Harvesters, which means 2 Harvesters go down. And I think no Orcas will. No, 1 does go down. 1 Orca does get eliminated there. And,
I'm really loving... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Bike Rush's getting absolute maximum value for those Orcas.
Yeah, his unit choice, before I cut you off, was... I think he really chose well for the map. Titans being able to shoot over terrain, over buildings. You know, base creep probably going to be an issue here as the game goes on. So being able to use those Titans and use your opponent's base for cover against their own units, going to be super effective. And then, you know, on top of that, going for an airfield, getting that ability to just get in and out of spaces really quickly. It's just a really, really nice macro play here from Bike Rush.
Ooh, there we go. That is 2 more dead Harvesters as Bike Rush swings into the main base of Futurama with the Orcas, snipes the Harvs, and then is happy to get on out of there. Futurama having a little bit of a difficulty actually getting damage done here in the early mid-game. Bike Rush up 12,000 credits in total resources gathered over a scrin player. Normally, that's the reverse. The scrin player has 4, 5, 6,000 credits for the first couple of minutes of the game, maybe even the first 10 minutes of the game. They are up in economy just because of how the factions work. But Bike Rush is massively outscaling Futurama here in potentially the last game of this tournament series. And he's bringing the Harvesters to the front line to tank. Are you kidding me?
This is, I'm assuming intentional, very odd, but I'm going to assume it's definitely intentional.
He's not typing anything in chat, I'll say that much.
He's taking shots from those Devourer tanks. He must have brought those Heavy Harvesters forward to eat the charged up shots from those Devourer tanks. Now the Titans get to come in pretty much full health into this base, and what's there to stop them? There's absolutely nothing here.
Total domination here by Bike Rush in game number 4. The GG comes out, and Futurama will take the L. He does not claim the bounty, and there is no roasted goat for dinner in Futurama's household. Not tonight, anyways.
Bike Rush owns just showing again the power of his strategy, and again, just he has earned the you know, the reputation that he has at this point, both for the BM that we saw in the earlier series, but also for his prowess in the game. And man, just looking very, very strong. So just very, very good showing here from Bike Rush. There really isn't much that you could like fault him for throughout any of these games. I think even the game that he dropped to Futurama, he was still looking pretty good.
That was a lovely build by Futurama there, and I am glad to see that the map score is 4-1 at the end of it all, but we have to give the biggest congratulations to Bike Rush Owns showing up and absolutely crushing through the bracket. Takes down Futurama twice in one event. Futurama rising from the ashes, coming back through the lower bracket to get his shot at revenge, but not able to clinch it. Bike Rush Owns dominating there in those last 3 games, crushing Futurama to take the win. And 4-1 will be your final map score. Sparty, my man, thank you so much for joining it. Our significant others are going to be pretty darn happy. It's hard to beat a 3.5-hour tournament. Nice and tight in terms of total runtime. We got some great series, we had some great games, and we had just some really entertaining matches as well. Some goofy builds coming out from Masterleaf. We always have to thank him for that. But thank you so much for joining me, man. What are your closing thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for having me too. I appreciate all the effort that you put into actually, you know, getting this production put together. I know it's no small feat. So I appreciate that you do all the heavy lifting on that and just allow me to tag along for the ride. And a big shout out to obviously all the players for putting on a good show today. Futurama really pushing hard. Took Bike Rush to an ace match earlier, fought his way back through the losers bracket, and took him to task again on this last series, just not able to find his way out. So again, just very good games all throughout the day. We've had pretty awesome viewership from what I could tell on your channel as well, about hovering around 300 right now, so that's pretty awesome. I hope everybody's getting a chance to hit that like button, and if you haven't, make sure to give the man a subscription, hit that subscribe button, also the notification bell, all the good old classic stuff that us YouTubers say in order to hit that SEO. I think that's the term.
To be honest,
yeah, show Sybert some love. He puts a lot of effort into this. His overlay, we were kind of geeking out about it last night. It's pretty freaking awesome. So if you guys haven't seen that, make sure to pay attention to it in the replay. It's really great.
Which big thanks to Double Evil for being the one to actually code that overlay and put all of those stats together. But big thanks to you for tuning in. Everyone watching, we very much appreciate it. And of course, Phantom for organizing the event, and the sponsors for donating a couple of dollars here or there for the ladder finals of July. And of course, big thanks to Zads for hitting me up and making me aware of this event. He was also streaming his game, his perspective on this one. And yeah, you can go check that out. VOD will be available immediately after, and that will pretty much do it for this show match. Well, for this tournament, for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and this is Sybert signing out.